Chapter 2962. God Monarch He Yen was the third strongest person in Blood Sword sect. He was even stronger than the left protector. 100 years ago, he had broken through to the 7th stage and became a God Monarch. Even if 4th Elder was not injured, he was not God Monarch He Yan's match. Moreover, he had been injured by God Monarch He Yan's sneak attack. The two strange sawtooth swords also contained deadly poison. 4th Elder's organs and blood had been corroded by the poison and were rotting rapidly. God Monarch He Yen stared at him sharply and laughed sinisterly. "Blood Blade Sect's bastard, I've been waiting for you for 2 days. Do you think our sect spies and informants are just for show? Blood Blade Sect has destroyed several of our sect's branches. Do you really think we are not prepared? Tonight, you and your 60 lackeys will all be buried here." After saying that, God Monarch He Yen waved his hand at the 3 purple-robed deacons. The 3 deacons immediately understood and rushed to the surrounding palaces to deal with the elite disciples of Blood Blade Sect. 4th Elder would be dealt with by God Monarch He Yen. 3 lower God Monarch level deacons against the elite disciples of Blood Blade Sect would definitely be a one-sided massacre. It was foreseeable that Blood Blade Sect's plan would fail. Very soon, 4th Elder and dozens of elite disciples would be killed. Thinking of this, 4th Elder's eyes dimmed and despair surged in his heart. He stared angrily at God Monarch He Yen and sneered, "He. Although we have been cautious and concealed our information, we have still underestimated Blood Blade Sect's intelligence network. Not only did they know that our sect was going to take action, they also guessed that the target was the Northern Plains branch. God Monarch He Yen, how many spies have you planted in our sect? What is the position of the spy with the highest position?" On the surface, his fighting spirit had disappeared and he was pessimistic and desperate. But in reality, he was silently healing himself and suppressing the poison in his body. He would not give up until the last moment. God Monarch He Yen revealed a disdainful expression and sneered, "Little bastard, are you out of your mind? This is our sect's biggest secret. Why would we tell you?" The 4th Elder didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled helplessly and said, "I wasn't your opponent in the first place, and I was injured by your Devourer sword and poisoned by 10 flames. No matter what, I won't be able to survive tonight's battle. Since I'm going to die anyway, why don't you tell me so that I can rest in peace?" Sir God He Yen raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "You know yourself well. It's a pity that your little trick can't fool me. Trying to stall for time with me? You still want to circulate your chi to cure your poison and obtain our sect's secrets? Ha! You're too naive. Since you're a dead man, there's no need for you to know that secret. You can die in peace." Sir God He Yen swung his God Devourer dual swords and slashed out dozens of pitch-black sword lights at the 4th Elder. The 4th Elder's plan was exposed, and he could no longer delay the battle. He could only fight with all his strength. Blood waves break the sky. He cast his divine power with all his might, releasing a blood wave that was 1,000 feet tall. It surged towards God Monarch Black Inferno like a giant dragon. However, the billowing blood wave was immediately defeated by the sword light. The 4th Elder cast a few more divine powers, but they were all defeated by God Monarch Black Inferno easily. 20 breaths later, God Monarch Black Inferno flew across the night sky and teleported in front of the 4th Elder. He swung his God Devourer dual swords and slashed. The 4th Elder's power was weak, and the poison in his body was triggered. As he saw the sword light slashing down, he wanted to dodge but he couldn't. Crack! Following a crisp cracking sound, a God Devourer sword struck his left shoulder. His left shoulder was instantly severed, and his entire left arm flew out. Black blood spurted out from the wound. Ah! The 4th Elder flew out and crashed into the ruins dozens of miles away. He let out a miserable shriek. Countless bricks and dust buried him. He struggled in a wretched state, and his heart was filled with despair and helplessness. Damn it! I'm no match for God Monarch Black Inferno. He would be able to kill me within 100 moves at most. That damn Tianqing, where is he? My disciples and I are about to be killed. Why hasn't he shown himself? Isn't he cooperating with our sect? Isn't he arrogant and conceited? He even defeated left emissary Jin with one move. His power is comparable to a high-level Sir God's. Why is he acting like a coward when facing God Monarch Black Inferno? In despair, the fourth elder still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. He knew that Ji Tianqing was hiding in the darkness and watching the battle silently. At that moment, he hoped that Ji Tianqing could take action and deal with God Monarch Black Inferno. He didn't hope to defeat God Monarch Black Inferno. As long as he could block him, he would have a chance to survive. However, God Monarch Black Inferno charged over again. The fourth elder looked around, but he still didn't see Ji Tianqing. Bang 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 bang. Both parties exchanged 2 moves and there was a deafening bang. There was a resplendent 5-colored divine light. The fourth elder flew out again. Blood spurted out from his 7 orifices, and his body was soaked in blood. He smashed into the ruins again and was buried under the ground by the broken walls. He was even more desperate and helpless. He prayed even more urgently for Ji Tianqing to appear. At that moment, Ji Tianqing's divine sense voice suddenly rang in his mind. Didn't you want to lead the disciples to achieve something? Didn't you want to destroy the Northern Plains branch in the shortest time possible to prove your ability? I've been watching. Why didn't you complete the task and end up in such a sorry state? The fourth elder was so angry that he trembled and coughed violently. He looked around and searched, but he still didn't see Ji Tianqing. In anger, he could only reply with divine sense, "What's the point of saying this now? Are you going to sit by and watch me and my disciples get killed?" Ji Tianqing's voice came and he said indifferently, "Although I can kill God Monarch Black Inferno and flatten Green Summit Mountain in an instant, I don't care. Your life and death have nothing to do with me." The fourth elder was so depressed that he vomited blood. He roared angrily, "You signed an alliance agreement with our sect. We are allies. You can't just watch us die." Ji Tianqing sneered, "I came here tonight just to supervise the battle and inspect your combat strength. Everyone is well aware of this." The fourth elder was speechless. Before he left, the vice sect master and left emissary Jin gave him this task. However, he wasn't willing to die just like that, and he forcefully endured the humiliation and rage as he asked via voice transmission. "Then what exactly do you want before you can act?" Ji Tianqing said with an indifferent tone, "Apologize to me, and beg me with all your heart. If your attitude is good enough, maybe I will save your life. You just want me to apologize? Is that true?" The fourth elder looked astonished. He couldn't believe it. He had a premonition that Ji Tianqing would use this opportunity to blackmail him. He had to pay a heavy price for Ji Tianqing to save his life. But he didn't expect that Ji Tianqing didn't make excessive demands, nor did he take advantage of the situation to ask for treasures. He just sincerely apologized. "No problem." Chapter 2963. The fourth elder wasn't a gentleman. He didn't think it was shameful to apologize to Ji Tianqing. As long as he could survive, he was willing to do anything, no matter how embarrassing it was. Not only him, but the entire Crimson Blade sect was the same. They were unorthodox and unscrupulous. They didn't care about self-respect or reputation. Surviving was the most important thing. As he dodged Sir God He Yan's attack, he transmitted his voice to Ji Tianqing, "Mr. Tianqing, I didn't recognize an expert and offended you. Now that I've seen your power and skills, I'm convinced and I don't dare to be disrespectful. The mission tonight was related to dozens of lives and the glory of the Crimson Blade sect. Young Master Tianheng, please be magnanimous and forgive me and those brats for our ignorance and offense." Please save our lives. If we can survive and complete the mission, I'll be very respectful to you. In the future, I will definitely be respectful to you and follow your lead. The fourth elder was seriously injured and he had to dodge Sir God He Yan's attack. It wasn't easy for him to say that clearly at the moment of life and death. Even if his tone wasn't sincere, it was understandable. Although he made it sound nice, it was true. However, in his heart, he wanted to add another sentence at the end of his sentence. After you save us, kill Sir God He Yan and flatten Green Summit Mountain, what I said will count. Of course, he only dared to think about it in his heart and he didn't dare to show it. Ji Tianqing transmitted his voice to him, since you're sincere, I'll give you a chance to survive. The fourth elder saw that Jian Wushuang finally agreed to help and he was overjoyed. There was hope in his heart. Thank you, Mr. Tianqing, for your kindness. Ah! The fourth elder was about to thank Jian Wushuang but Sir God He Yan attacked him like a ghost and stabbed his thigh. He was distracted and couldn't dodge in time. His right thigh was pierced by the God Devourer sword. Black blood spurted out from the wound and his bones were broken. Under the intense pain, the fourth elder let out a miserable cry. Sir God He Yan took the opportunity to attack. He waved his two swords and a black light covered the fourth elder. It seemed that the fourth elder had nowhere to hide and was about to be minced into meat paste by the sword light. Just at this critical moment, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. In the night sky behind the fourth elder, a sacred golden light suddenly lit up, and a mighty divine power burst forth. A mountain-sized illusory image of a dragon and elephant, carrying the power to destroy everything, fiercely slammed into the black light that filled the sky. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion, the hundreds of pitch-black sword lights were shattered. The draconic elephant divine fist's power didn't decrease and it blasted towards Sir God He Yan. Faced with the sudden change, Sir God Black Flame was astonished. He had not expected it. At the critical moment, he hurriedly waved his two swords, forming a wall in front of him with hundreds of sword lights. Boom! The draconic elephant divine fist collided with the wall of sword light with a thunderous boom. The golden light fist shadow and the black light sword wall collapsed at the same time, rolling up a destructive hurricane that spread out in all directions. The fourth elder was sent flying. He took the opportunity to retreat to the edge of the mountain peak. He hid in a dark place and took some pills to suppress his injuries. Sir God Black Flame was also sent flying back thousands of feet. He looked around in shock and his eyes were extremely solemn. He held the God Devourer sword with both hands, one in front of him and the other pointing to the ground. He was fully alert. The bastards of the Bloody Blade sect still have a trump card. The person who attacked must be an upper-level Sir God. Who is it in the Bloody Blade sect? Sir God Black Flame frowned as he thought to himself. However, his divine consciousness searched the entire Green Summit Mountain, but he couldn't find the upper-level Sir God. At this moment, in a palace not far away, there was suddenly a burst of five-colored divine light that fluctuated with dozens of nomological powers. Boom! A huge five-colored mushroom cloud rose from the palace and lit up the entire Green Summit Mountain. Sir God Black Flame was shocked and he hurriedly released his divine consciousness to check the situation. He saw that the palace had been razed to the ground and turned into a brick ruin. Within the palace, dozens of elite disciples of the Blood Sword sect and hundreds of branch guards had been killed. Even a purple-robed deacon was killed on the spot and his godhead shattered into dozens of pieces. On the other hand, the Blood Blade sect disciples had retreated unscathed. God Monarch Black Flame discovered that a white-robed young man had taken away the deacon's godhead fragment in the midst of the chaos and disappeared. Who is that white-robed youth? He doesn't seem to be from the Bloody Blade sect. He seems to be a god of a foreign race. Sir God Black Flame didn't recognize humans. There were no humans in the entire Great Yan Empire. To him, Ji Tianqing was a foreign race. Just as Sir God Black Flame was thinking. In another palace 10 miles away, there was another burst of 5-colored divine light that covered the sky. Dense pillars of divine lightning blended with the golden sword light and bombarded the entire palace. Sir God Black Flame's thoughts were interrupted, so he released his divine consciousness to check. He saw that the palace had also been blasted to pieces. Dozens of disciples of the Blood Sword sect and dozens of guards had been killed and turned to ashes. The leading purple-robed deacon had also died without a complete corpse. Only a few pieces of charcoal were left. His godhead flew into the night sky and tried to escape. The white-robed young man teleported tens of thousands of zhang away, and easily caught up. He grabbed the godhead, and crushed it to pieces. After putting away the godhead fragment, he rushed to the third palace. There, the third purple-robed deacon was leading 5 disciples of the Blood Sword sect to attack more than 20 disciples of the Bloody Blade sect. After the white-robed youth arrived, he used his left hand to grab the disciples of the Bloody Blade sect and threw them out of the palace. He formed a sword seal with his right hand and sent out hundreds of 5-colored swords that covered the entire palace. Sir God Black Flame could clearly sense that each sword contained more than 30 types of law power. They were extremely mysterious and powerful. His eyes widened as he roared inwardly, "It's him. He's the Bloody Blade sect's backup. He's the high-ranked divine lord who attacked just now." Sir God Black Flame suddenly understood. He teleported over without hesitation and tried to stop the white-robed youth. However, he was still one step too late. Boom! 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 A series of loud noises erupted, shaking the heavens. The palace was destroyed on the spot, and only a deep hole was left in the ground. The purple-robed administrator and several disciples of the Blood Sword sect had all been crushed to pieces. Even their godheads were smashed into pieces by the sword light. When Sir God Black Flame arrived, the white-robed youth had just put away the godhead fragment of the purple-robed deacon. Whoosh! Sir God Black Flame stopped in the night sky, 3,000 feet away from the white-robed youth. He glared at the white-robed youth. "Little bastard, who are you? Why are you in cahoots with the Bloody Blade sect?" Sir God Black Flame was infuriated, and his heart ached. He watched with his own eyes as 3 deacons and more than 20 elite disciples were killed by the white-robed young man. He had done nothing and was unable to stop the white-robed youth. This made him feel extremely guilty, ashamed, and infuriated. If he did not tear the white-robed youth to pieces, he would not be able to get rid of the hatred in his heart. The white-robed youth looked at him indifferently and smiled. He said playfully, "Doesn't the Blood Sword sect hate me the most and do everything they can to deal with me? I'm right in front of you, but why can't you, the right protector, recognize me?" Sir God Black Flame was stunned for a moment before he reacted. His expression changed. "It's you." End of chapter. Chapter 2964. It's you. Qingshan City's Qi family's consecrator, the human youth Tianqing. God Monarch He Yen glared at Ji Tianqing with resentment as he gnashed his teeth. "That's right, it's me." Ji Tianqing nodded with a cold smile. Although he wasn't the strongest opponent of the Blood Sword sect, he was definitely the most hated and humiliated enemy of the Blood Sword sect. An unknown consecrator of a small family actually made the powerful Blood Sword sect suffer. Moreover, they even lost a protector and 2 elders. Losing 3 mid-level god monarchs in a row was a huge blow to the Blood Sword sect. In particular, the Blood Sword sect's reputation and prestige suffered a heavy blow. Otherwise, the Blood Blade sect wouldn't have dared to attack and destroy the various branches of the Blood Sword sect. Therefore, the people of the Blood Sword sect wanted to kill Ji Tianqing even in their dreams. God Monarch He Yen glared at Ji Tianqing and roared, "Little bastard, we've been looking for an opportunity to kill you, but you hid in the Ning family and didn't show yourself. Now, you've finally left the Tianxue County and joined the Blood Blade sect. You're courting death. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said indifferently, I'm still a free man and haven't joined any sect. The Blood Sword sect wants to get rid of me, so I can only destroy them first. Coincidentally, the Blood Blade sect also wants to get rid of you, so they sent an envoy to negotiate with me. In the end, we reached an agreement. So that's how it is. God Monarch He Yen finally understood. He grinned and said, unfortunately, even if you find the Blood Blade sect to back you up, you won't be able to escape death. Not only you, but even the Blood Blade sect will be destroyed by me sooner or later. Ji Tianqing frowned and said indifferently, you don't have much ability, but you talk big. Tonight, you'll be buried here and won't live to see the sun tomorrow. God Monarch He Yen was fearless and even laughed confidently. Ha ha ha. I've long heard that you're arrogant and lawless. Now that I see it, it's true. Unfortunately, no matter how arrogant you are, it's useless. Tonight, the one who will be smashed to pieces is you. As he spoke, Sir God He Yen swung the two God Devourer swords and released a vast amount of divine power. Swish swish. Thousands of streaks of black divine power drilled into Green Peak Mountain. Immediately, a mountain protection formation that had been hidden for a long time was activated. Shwa! A blood-red light barrier that blotted out the sky appeared, enveloping the entire Green Summit Mountain and sealing off the area within a radius of 300 miles. This was a monarch-grade high-grade divine formation. It released a formless pressure that suppressed Ji Tianqing, the fourth elder, and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect. Everyone felt that it was difficult to move a single step. Their blood vessels were almost frozen, and they could not use even half of their power. The fourth elder and the 40 or so surviving disciples of the Blood Blade sect had already gathered together. Just now, the disciples had advised the fourth elder to leave the place quickly while Ji Tianqing was dealing with Sir God He Yen. It didn't matter if they failed the mission. They didn't want to stay here and get killed by God Monarch Black Flame. However, the fourth elder did not listen to the disciples' advice and insisted on staying. He and the other disciples hid at the edge of the battlefield, healing themselves while watching the battle. However, no one had expected Sir God He Yen to activate another mountain protection formation. Moreover, it was a monarch-grade high-grade divine formation. The disciples of the Blood Blade sect suddenly changed their expressions and started discussing. Oh my God! There's actually another formation hidden in Green Peak Mountain. The power of this great formation is so strong. I feel that I can't move. I can't fight anymore. Fourth Elder, we told you to leave as soon as possible, but you didn't listen. Now, we can't escape even if we want to. Sigh. Not only will that kid die, but we will all die here. The disciples were pessimistic and in despair. The fourth elder's expression was also uncertain. His eyes were grave. He was silent for a while, then he used voice transmission to persuade everyone, since we are going to die anyway, why don't we recuperate first? At the critical moment, let's give him a hand and join forces to kill the enemy. The disciples didn't say anything, which meant that they agreed with him. Just then, Ji Tianqing looked at the blood-red light dome that covered the sky and asked calmly, God Emperor He Yen, is this what you rely on? The source of your confidence? What other trump cards do you have? Use them all. Otherwise, it will be too late. It was just a monarch-grade high-grade divine formation. It was not like he had not deciphered it before. It was just a little troublesome and would take some time. You are really arrogant. Sir God He Yen sneered and pointed at Green Peak Mountain. He said, in the belly of the mountain, there is a teleportation formation. Just now, I have activated the teleportation formation. The other side of the formation is connected to Highland County in the south. This time, the Blood Blade sect purposely sent a group of disciples to sneak into Highland County and pretend to attack the branch. Hence, the sect sent 2 middle-level Sir Gods to guard the Highland County branch. Then, Sir God He Yen sneered proudly. The 2 Sir Gods will be here soon. It is not too late for you to admit defeat and surrender. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said playfully, building a teleportation formation in the Northern Plains branch to connect to the Highland County branch thousands of miles away. This is a good idea. Although it will consume a lot of resources, it will allow the 2 counties to keep in touch and help each other. I have to say that I did not expect this. You have brought me a little surprise. Then, he turned to look at the hiding place of the 4th elder and the others. He said in a dignified tone, "Did you hear that? Go back and tell your sect master to learn from him." The 4th elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect looked pale and strange. They had lost their fighting spirit and were prepared to be defeated. They had not expected Sir God He Yen to have a backup plan. He had brought 2 powerful helpers from Highland County. This time, everyone was doomed. There was no doubt about it. However, they had not expected that Ji Tianqing was not only not worried, but was also in the mood to joke. Sir God He Yen was also surprised. He asked Ji Tianqing with a smile, "Kid, you are about to die. Are you still going to hold on? This is my trump card. It is not a surprise for you, but a nightmare." Ji Tianqing smiled disdainfully and said proudly, "I am invincible. Do as you please. Tonight, no matter how many people from the Blood Blade sect come, I will kill them all." Then, he stopped talking nonsense with Sir God He Yen and used his trump card with all his might. Celestial Dragon Overlord Body. Sky-destroying sword formation. Then, a dragon roar that could pierce gold and crack stone resounded through the universe. Ji Tianqing's body glowed with golden light and instantly turned into a 10,000 feet tall war god in golden armor. He formed a mysterious sword formation with his hands and pointed to the sky with one hand and the ground with the other. Swoosh! Thousands of giant divine swords descended from the sky and passed through the mountain protection array to seal off the entire Green Summit Mountain. Swish! 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 A dazzling golden sword formation was formed. A peerlessly powerful divine might nullified the suppression of the Grand Mountain protecting formation, and a peerlessly terrifying sword intent swept toward all of the Blood Sword sect members. End of chapter. Chapter 2965. Within the sky-destroying sword array. The 4th elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect felt the pressure on them decrease greatly. Seeing the sky filled with divine sword lights and feeling the mighty divine might, they were filled with awe. Everyone hid in a corner and looked up at Ji Tianqing in the sky, their eyes filled with anticipation. But God Lord Black Flame, the hundreds of guards, and the 2,000 lackeys of the Blood Sword sect had a different feeling. The sword array released a supreme divine might that suppressed them. It made it difficult for them to move, and their bloodlines were frozen. Their fighting strength was greatly reduced. The sword intent that was everywhere pierced their divine souls and disintegrated their willpower. The formless sword intent was extremely terrifying. In less than 10 breaths of time, over 1,000 lackeys of the Blood Sword sect fell to the ground and died. Their bodies were unharmed, but their godheads were shattered, and their divine souls were destroyed by the sword intent. Then, many black-armored guards died on the spot. These ordinary heavenly gods and true gods couldn't withstand the sword intent of the sky-destroying sword array. Seeing so many guards and subordinates die, God Lord Black Flame's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The 4th elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect were so excited that their blood was boiling. Everyone looked at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes and exclaimed in disbelief. Heavens! How can the sword formation he executed be so powerful to such an extent? The sword array hasn't even been activated yet. It's only releasing the formless sword intent, yet it can kill so many guards. Such a powerful sword array has to be at least high-grade monarch grade and would take 3 to 5 days to complete. But he can use it with a wave of his hand. How did he do it? No wonder Left Envoy Jean wants to cooperate with him on behalf of our sect. I understand now. Such a terrifying expert. Fortunately, our sect cooperated with him and didn't become his enemy. Previously, these disciples of the Blood Blades sect had some conflict and hatred for Ji Tianqing. But now, they had personally witnessed Ji Tianqing's powerful means. Seeing him easily kill so many lackeys of the Blood Sword sect, they were convinced by his strength and felt a bit more approval for him. At this moment, Ji Tianqing controlled the sword array with his divine will and controlled thousands of divine giant swords to attack the Green Peak sect. Swish! Swish! The sword light crisscrossed, wantonly cutting and stabbing, covering the entire Green Summit Mountain. Pang pang pang! A series of muffled sounds rang out, reverberating in the sky. The mountain peak shook violently. Dirt and rocks flew everywhere. Numerous craters and ravines were blasted out. Countless houses and palaces were reduced to rubble and ruins under the bombardment of the giant sword. The Green Summit Mountain guards and disciples who were fleeing in panic were also smashed into pieces by the sword light. Their flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Ji Tianqing wanted to destroy the entire Qingfeng mountain. Sir God He Yen was infuriated. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared and swung his god-devouring dual swords to attack. Damned beast, I'll tear you apart. The god-engulfing dual swords glowed with a cold black light as 18 heaven and earth-splitting giant blades slashed toward Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was fearless. He held the sword of burial of heaven and launched a counterattack. Duan Yu. Sun shatter. The sword of burial of heaven, which was several hundred feet long, stabbed out dozens of giant swords, erupting with the power of more than 40 laws. Pang pang pang. The five-colored giant sword and the pitch-black sword light clashed, creating a huge explosion in countless fragments of divine light. An incomparably violent shockwave spread out in all directions. Immediately, the peak of Green Summit Mountain was flattened and lowered by nearly 100 feet. Another 200 or so bodyguards and 500 or so branch cult members were killed by the aftermath of the battle. Sir God He Yan's attack was neutralized, unable to injure Ji Tianqing. He became even more furious and unwilling. He swung his dual swords again and attacked Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing also used all his strength to meet the attack. They were locked in a fierce battle in the sky. At the same time, the heaven-vanquishing sword array activated on its own. Thousands of sacred sword lights danced in the sky, wantonly slaughtering the people of the Blood Sword sect. With each passing second, dozens of guards and sect members were torn to pieces by the sword lights, dying on the spot. Green Summit Mountain could not bear the burden. It was torn apart and on the verge of collapse. The situation became even worse. Sir God He Yen attacked Ji Tianqing with all his might, but it was to no avail. Instead, he was held back by Ji Tianqing and had no time to save the guards and sect members, leading to the imminent destruction of Green Summit Mountain. Sir God He Yen was filled with grief and indignation, but there was nothing he could do. Hundreds of houses and buildings on the mountain peak were destroyed. Even the storehouses that stored large amounts of resources were reduced to rubble. More than half of the 2,000 sect members were dead or injured. Only 1,000 people were left, and they were still fleeing and hiding. More than 500 of the 600 guards had been slaughtered. The remaining 100 guards were scared out of their wits. They frantically fled into the mountain peak to hide. As for the fourth elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect, they hid in the shadows and watched the battle for a while. They were somewhat impatient. Ji Tianqing alone had turned Green Summit Mountain upside down. He looked mighty and domineering when he was on a killing spree. The people of the Blood Blade sect respected and admired him. They could not let him take all the credit. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect would not miss the opportunity to take advantage of the situation. As a result, the fourth elder led his disciples and rushed out, aggressively attacking the guards and followers of the branch. The surviving guards and sect members were already frightened out of their wits and had lost their will to fight. Faced with the attack of the fourth elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect, they could not resist at all and were slaughtered. Very quickly, 100 seconds passed. Green Summit Mountain had completely collapsed. More than half of it had collapsed. Gravel and dust filled the sky. More than 90% of the guards and sect members of the branch had been slaughtered. Only a few dozen guards and more than 100 sect members were left. They were all seriously injured and were scattered all over the battlefield. Some people were buried under the rubble and were on their last breaths. Some people hid deep underground and prayed that the battle would end soon. Some people were running around like headless flies and could not find a safe place to hide. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Blood Blade sect were in a good mood. They killed to their heart's content. Sir God He Yen and Ji Tianqing were still fighting fiercely. Of course, Sir God He Yen was fighting with Jian Wushuang while blocking the attacks of the Sky Punishment Sword formation. It was really difficult for him to take care of both sides. Not only had he used up a lot of his divine power, but his fighting power had also weakened rapidly. He was also seriously injured. There were wounds and bloody holes on his chest and back. Blood kept flowing out and soaked his robe. His face was covered in blood and looked even more ferocious and terrifying. The anger in his heart had already reached its peak and was about to explode. He knew that Green Summit Mountain was about to be destroyed and the Northern Plains branch was finished. He could not stop Ji Tianqing alone, nor could he kill him. He could only pray that the two Sir Gods from Highland County would come to help as soon as possible. They should be here soon. Sir God He Yen shouted in his heart. He was anxious and could not wait. At that moment, inside the collapsed half of Green Summit Mountain, the teleportation formation covered by gravel finally lit up with a dazzling white light. End of chapter. Chapter 2966. Swoosh. A blinding white light lit up the night sky. Two lofty figures, wrapped in white light, dashed out of the ruins and came to the night sky. They were two Sir God experts. One of them was a middle-aged man in crimson armor with dragon horns on his forehead. He was 30 feet tall and was as tall as a tower. He was surrounded by crimson fire, which showed his valiance and dominance. The other person was in a purple robe. His skin was as black as charcoal and his body was as thin as firewood. He was in a loose purple robe that looked like a bamboo pole holding up his robe. He looked extremely strange. However, he was surrounded by purple thunderbolts and his aura was mysterious. The two Sir Gods were from Highland County and they were Sir God He Yan's helpers. When they arrived at Green Summit Mountain, the two of them stood in the night sky and looked down at the battlefield. They saw that more than half of Green Summit Mountain had collapsed and all the buildings were destroyed. All the disciples and guards were dead. The two of them were shocked. Gosh! How did this happen? There was a problem with the teleportation formation. We were only late by a few breaths. How did it become like this? The two Sir Gods were shocked and in disbelief. The North Plains branch was more powerful than Highland County and it had a monarch upper divine array to protect it. Even if a high-level Sir God had attacked, it would not have fallen so quickly. Moreover, the two of them knew that Sir God He Yen was guarding the place. With Sir God He Yen around, it would not have been defeated. When Green Summit Mountain collapsed, the teleportation formation was affected and more than half of it was damaged. Luckily, the formation could still be used. However, the process was slow and it took a few breaths' time. The two Sir Gods did not expect that Green Summit Mountain would be destroyed in such a tragic manner just by delaying for a short period of time. Thinking of Sir God He Yen, the two of them looked up at the sky again. They saw that Sir God He Yen was still fighting with Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was still the 10,000 feet tall god of war in golden armor, and he looked holy and mighty. Sir God He Yen was in a sorry state. He was covered in wounds and his aura was chaotic and irritable. It was to the extent that when he was beaten back by Ji Tianqing, he had no choice but to use his ultimate secret technique. Black smoke gushed out of his body, and his body turned into a pitch-black divine statue that was thousands of feet tall. This statue had 2 heads and 8 arms. It looked like a spider and was surrounded by black flames of death. He waved his arms with all his might, shooting out pitch-black blades of death, attacking Ji Tianqing fiercely. The 2 God Devourer swords had also expanded to a length of 10,000 feet. They danced in the sky, waiting for an opportunity to assassinate Ji Tianqing. However, the sky was filled with divine 5-colored giant swords, desperately trying to strangle him. All of his attacks were neutralized by the giant divine sword. Ji Tianqing swung the sword of burial of heaven and executed all kinds of sword Dao divine arts, beating him until he screamed and retreated continuously. After seeing the situation clearly, the 2 Sir Gods were filled with shock. Their expressions changed again. Who is that guy? How is he so powerful that he can force Monarch God He Yen to retreat? God Monarch Black Flame is a high-level God Monarch. That person is even stronger, so he must also be a high-level God Monarch. However, which high-level God Monarch in the entire Bloodfire Divine Kingdom looks like that? The 2 Sir Gods frowned and pondered hard. Who exactly was the golden armored god of war? However, they couldn't recognize him no matter how hard they searched their memories. At that moment, Monarch God He Yen was sent flying by Ji Tianqing's sword. Black smoke spurted out of his body, and his injuries were even more serious. Seeing that the 2 Sir Gods were still in a daze, he shouted anxiously, "What are you waiting for? Come and help me kill him." The 2 Sir Gods came back to their senses and hurriedly took out their divine weapons, attacking Ji Tianqing from all sides. Although the 2 of them were middle-level Sir Gods. In terms of strength and status, they were lower than Monarch God He Yen. However, Ji Tianqing noticed that Monarch God He Yen didn't seem to be their superior. There was no sense of command in his words and actions. There seemed to be more of cooperation and alliance between the 3 of them. Ji Tianqing paid more attention and couldn't help but think, with the strength of these 2 Sir Gods, they should be elders in the Blood Sword sect. However, these 2 aren't among the 3 surviving elders of the Blood Sword sect. It seems that these 2 aren't from the Blood Sword sect. They might be from other sections. Surrounded by 3 Sir Gods, the pressure on Ji Tianqing increased greatly. However, he wasn't worried. He methodically defended and counterattacked. With the support of the Heaven-Mending Pearl and the 5 Elements World, he had inexhaustible divine power. He used all kinds of divine abilities and ultimate skills to fight the 3 Sir Gods without falling into a disadvantageous position. Moreover, the Heaven-Punishing Sword formation was also operating to kill the 3 Sir Gods. Ji Tianqing was in an invincible position. He just needed some time to kill the 3 Sir Gods one by one. Soon, another 100 breaths of time passed. With the help of the 2 Sir Gods, the pressure on Monarch God He Yen decreased by a lot. While besieging Ji Tianqing, he also found some time to take a breather and secretly take a divine pill to replenish his divine power. However, the hope that had just been ignited in his heart was once again extinguished. He originally thought that with the help of the 2 mid-level Sir Gods, he would definitely be able to kill Ji Tianqing successfully. However, reality proved that he had been too optimistic. The 2 sides fought for 100 breaths of time and exchanged hundreds of blows. He and the 2 Sir Gods didn't gain any advantage and couldn't cause any substantial damage to Ji Tianqing. Instead, he and the 2 Sir Gods were injured by Ji Tianqing's divine abilities and were exhausted from defending against the sword formation. As time passed, the 3's injuries worsened and their strength weakened. However, Ji Tianqing was still as vigorous as before and his divine power was vigorous and overbearing. Even the heaven-punishing sword formation didn't show any signs of weakening. Monarch God He Yan's heart sank as he gradually realized that something was wrong. At this moment, the two mid-level Sir Gods were sent flying by the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist and smashed into the ruins while vomiting blood. Similar situations had happened more than 10 times before and no one was surprised. However, this time, the situation was a little strange. The two Sir Gods were lying in the ruins and their bodies were twitching as they cried out in pain. Monarch God He Yan turned his head and saw dark blue smoke coming out of the two Sir Gods' bodies. The wounds on their bodies were spewing out a large amount of green liquid and it corroded the rocks until white smoke came out. The scariest thing was that their wounds were rapidly rotting and spreading, turning into terrifying bloody holes. Monarch God He Yan was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He exclaimed in shock, "What, poison, are you poisoned?" Without a doubt. The two Sir Gods were in such a miserable state because they had been poisoned. Their blood vessels were corroded and their bodies were rapidly rotting. Their divine power was rapidly weakening and their fighting power was dropping drastically. However, Monarch God He Yan couldn't figure out when the two Sir Gods had been poisoned. Just as he was pondering, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He lowered his head and saw that the wounds on his chest were also spewing out dark green liquid. The wounds were rotting rapidly and the flesh turned into black ash that scattered into the night sky. Under his astonished gaze, the wounds expanded rapidly and turned into huge bloody holes. Moreover, his injured arms were also rotting rapidly and dark blue smoke was coming out of them. I was poisoned too. There are 2 more chapters to go. Please understand. End of chapter. Chapter 2967. Sir God He Yan felt chills all over his body and his heart trembled. It was not because of the pain caused by the poison. It was because of fear. No matter how strong Ji Tianqing was or how magical the sword formation was, Sir God He Yan would only feel helpless and angry. But Sir God He Yan and the two Sir Gods did not know and were silently poisoned. Until now, he still did not know what had happened. He did not know when he had been poisoned. This was too horrifying. Ji Tianqing's use of poison had reached the acme of perfection. How could such an enemy not be terrifying? Puff, Sir God He Yan could no longer endure the pain in his organs. He opened his mouth and spat out 2 mouthfuls of black blood. He could clearly feel that more than half of his blood vessels had been corroded by the poison and he could hardly use his divine power. Even his divine soul seemed to have been corroded by the poison. His consciousness was blurry and dizzy. In such a situation, if he continued to maintain his divine statue form, it would only cause the poison to wreak havoc and his strength to weaken faster. So, he quickly returned to his original form. Swoosh! There was a flash of black light. Sir God He Yan returned to his original form and became a skinny purple-haired elder. However, his appearance was too horrible to look at. His body was full of holes and he did not look human. Hundreds of wounds were worsening and expanding. Green liquid and dark blue smoke kept pouring out. He quickly took out a few elixirs to heal his wounds and replenish his divine power. He released divine light from his hands and swallowed them. Eating the elixirs was too slow. He used his divine power to absorb the elixirs and heal his wounds quickly. Not only that, he also took out a few golden talismans and stuck them on a few critical wounds to prevent them from worsening. After doing all this, he felt more at ease. He stared at Ji Tianqing ferociously and roared with a hoarse voice, "Bastard! When did you poison us? I am a high-level Sir God and I am immune to all poisons. What kind of poison is this? How could it invade my divine body without me noticing?" If he did not figure out the problem, Sir God He Yan would be traumatized. Ji Tianqing looked at him calmly and said slowly, that's right. A high-level Sir God like you is immune to all poisons. So, from the moment we started fighting, this monarch had already been using poison. This kind of poison was not violent, it would not take effect immediately, and it would not be fatal on the spot. However, it was most mysterious, silent, and undetectable. Furthermore, I've fused the poison into my sword Tao divine arts and sword formation. Every time you are injured, a trace of poison will enter your body. It's just a tiny bit of poison. Its power isn't obvious, so of course you wouldn't notice it. However, when you suffer too many injuries and the poison accumulates to a certain extent, it will erupt like a volcano and become difficult to control. Qi Tianqing didn't hide anything. He explained the process and method of using the poison. However, monarch god He Yen still didn't know what kind of poison he had used. Since he didn't know what kind of poison it was, there was no way to neutralize it. Emperor god He Yen was shocked and angry. He was even more afraid of Qi Tianqing. You vicious bastard. You are truly sinister to the extreme. It was one thing for him to be strong, but he was also so sinister, vicious, and scheming. This was what was truly terrifying. Sir God He Yen had to admit that he had already lost the battle. The destruction of the Northern Plains branch was already a foregone conclusion. More importantly, it was unknown whether he and the other two Sir Gods would be able to keep their lives. Qi Tianqing said with an indifferent expression, Blood Sword Sect has a blood feud with me. Since we are going to fight to the death, what's the point of talking about righteousness? Of course, we're going to do anything, isn't that so? Emperor God He Yen choked and couldn't refute. That's right, Blood Sword Sect did the same. If they could use the same poison to silently kill Qi Tianqing, Blood Sword Sect wouldn't hesitate to do the same. Therefore, he couldn't blame the other party for being too despicable. He could only blame himself for being too useless. Very good. Kid, you're ruthless and vicious enough. I'll remember you forever. I admit defeat in tonight's battle. However, don't be complacent. I'll return the favor tenfold and tear you to pieces very soon. Emperor God He Yen temporarily suppressed the poison and his injuries. He gnashed his teeth and left behind a few ruthless words. Then, he brought the two howling Sir Gods and flew towards the teleportation formation in the ruins. He didn't think of cracking the Heaven Punishment Sword formation and escaping. It was too stupid and might not succeed. Moreover, it was a waste of time. Escaping to Highland County through the teleportation formation was the wisest choice. Swish! Emperor God He Yen stretched out his hands and picked up the two heavily injured Sir Gods. He flew towards the ruins as fast as lightning. Qi Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. Things have already come to this, and you still want to escape. You're too naive. As he spoke, he used his divine thought to control the sword formation to intercept Emperor God He Yen. Swish! 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 Thousands of giant divine swords immediately sealed off the ruins and surrounded the teleportation formation. Emperor God He Yan's path was blocked and he had to use his divine ability to block the attack of the giant divine swords. He took out 4 dark golden runes and formed a law shield to protect himself. Bang! 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 Thousands of giant divine swords stabbed the law shield one after another, creating earth-shattering noises. The law shield was distorted and deformed by the assassination. Unable to bear the burden, it exploded with a bang. Emperor God He Yen retreated and was injured by the sword lights. Black blood splattered everywhere. He had no choice but to take out a purple gold cloak to cover himself. The ancient purple gold cloak was an upper-class monarch-level divine weapon from ancient times and it had many functions. Although it was old and worn, many of its functions had been destroyed. However, its strong defense was still there and it could block the attack of the giant swords. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds rang out incessantly, but the purple gold cloak remained unscathed and undamaged. Under the protection of the purple gold cloak, Emperor God He Yen dashed towards the ruins and got closer to the teleportation formation. However, Emperor God He Yen had the protection of the cloak and he could block the attack of the sword lights. The two middle-level divine lords, who were heavily injured and on the verge of fainting, were tragically killed by the sword light. Their divine bodies were cut into pieces. After their bodies were destroyed, the two remaining godheads were covered with a layer of dark blue light. It was obvious that their godheads were corroded by the poison. Emperor God He Yen was shocked and furious. He quickly protected the two godheads and dashed towards the teleportation formation. Damn it! Even if their bodies are destroyed, I have to protect their godheads. If they were to die here, it would be hard to explain when I return. With this thought flashing through his mind, Sir God Black Flame worked even harder. He tried his best to escape. Under the protection of the purple gold cloak, he passed through the attack of the sword lights and reached the vicinity of the teleportation formation. He was about to escape successfully. Just then, Ji Tianqing controlled thousands of giant swords and released dozens of nomological powers. He attacked the teleportation formation at all costs. Boom! 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 Countless sword lights rained down and hit the teleportation formation like meteors. There was an explosion of rainbow divine light and a loud bang. The already dilapidated teleportation grand array was blasted into pieces on the spot. It was completely destroyed. End of chapter. Chapter 2968. Sir God He Yen was dumbfounded. He had sacrificed so much and almost used all his strength to get close to the teleportation array. He was about to enter the array and escape the battlefield. In the end, Ji Tianqing destroyed the teleportation array at the cost of thousands of huge swords. When the array was destroyed, the thousands of huge swords were also destroyed. However, there were still 9,000 huge swords in the heaven-destroying sword array. Sir God He Yan's hope of escaping was extinguished. For a moment, he stood in the ruins, filled with despair and despair. Why? Why is it like this? 15 minutes ago, he had been hiding in the Green Summit Mountain, waiting for the disciples of the Blood Blade sect to die. At that time, he was full of confidence and complacency. How confident was he? But now, he had fallen from heaven to hell. Not only had the Green Summit Mountain been destroyed, but he had also fallen. He could not accept this result. He could not understand how Ji Tianqing could be so powerful and ruthless. He turned to look at Ji Tianqing and roared with a twisted face and resentful eyes, "Tianqing. Do you really want to kill all of us and not leave any leeway?" Ji Tianqing stood in the night sky and looked down at him indifferently. He said coldly, "Before the battle, I said that no matter how many people from the Blood Sword sect come, I will kill all of them. Since we are like fire and water and must fight to the death, you must die." Sir God He Yen trembled with anger. After hesitating for a moment, he could not hold back and roared, "Do you know that if you really kill us, there will be no chance of reconciliation? You will offend two sects at the same time and will fight to the death. From now on, you will be enemies with half of the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. There will be no place for you in this world." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "So, you admit that the two Sir Gods are not from the Blood Sword sect? Tell me, which sect are they from?" Sir God He Yen thought that he was afraid and felt a little comforted. "Ha! This is a secret between our sect and that sect. How can I tell you? If you know what's good for you, then let me go. That way, you'll only offend the Blood Sword sect, and won't form a death grudge with that sect." Ji Tianqing revealed a playful smile as he jokingly said, "In your mind, that sect is extremely powerful, far surpassing the Blood Sword sect, right? Because of this, you treated that sect as a life-saving talisman. Are you hoping that this monarch will refrain from shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases and let you live? Sir God He Yen didn't defend himself. It was a silent agreement. Ji Tianqing continued, although there are 6 great sects in the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, there are differences in strength between them. The Blood Sword sect and the Blood Blade sect were both ranked at the bottom. Now that a battle had broken out, it would be no different from a chicken pecking at each other. Even the evil Blood Palace is more powerful than you. Therefore, the 2 Sir Gods must have come from the first 3 sections. Sir God He Yen creased his eyebrows and held back his urge to speak. Because Ji Tianqing's analysis was completely correct. Ji Tianqing thought to himself, the top 3 sects are the 4 Symbols sect, the Heavenly sect, and the 1000 Ji sect. Ning Qinggang once vaguely reminded me that the 4 Symbols sect seems to support the 3rd prince. If I run into trouble, I can ask the 4 Symbols sect for help. Since the 4 Symbols sect is excluded, only the 1000 Ji sect and the Heavenly sect are left. Thinking of this, he had a general answer in his heart. If I'm not wrong, the 2 Sir Gods must have come from the Heavenly sect, which is ranked first and the strongest sect, right? Ji Tianqing said playfully as he looked at Sir God He Yen with a faint smile. Sir God He Yen's body suddenly trembled as a look of shock flashed across his eyes. He couldn't believe it. In order to save his life, he only mentioned that the 2 Sir Gods were from another powerful sect. He used this to threaten Ji Tianqing not to offend the 2 sects at the same time. However, Ji Tianqing guessed the answer with this clue. Such thoughts and wisdom were terrifying. Sir God He Yen was silent for a while and said seriously, Tianqing, I have to admit that your power, means, and scheming have impressed me. Since you're so smart, you should know how to choose. I'm not afraid to tell you that the sect ranked first is only the tip of the iceberg. The real power behind it is beyond everyone's imagination. Even the royal family of the Holy Kingdom is afraid of it and doesn't dare to provoke it. As for the rest, you can figure it out yourself. When Sir God He Yen said that, he didn't mean to show off. There was no other reason but because he didn't dare to. Because he vaguely knew some inside information and he knew how powerful the sect was. Hence, when he mentioned the sect, he had to maintain a respectful attitude and he didn't even dare to assume the power of the sect. After Ji Tianqing heard what Sir God He Yen had said, he frowned and thought for a while. Seeing that, Sir God He Yen was more confident and confident. However, to his surprise, Ji Tianqing actually refused. He shook his head and sneered, Sir God He Yen, you don't know my nature. I only follow my heart and do whatever I want. I've never been threatened. Not by the royal family of the Holy Kingdom, not by the 6 sects. And you don't have the right to threaten me. As he spoke, he slowly extended his right palm and there was a mysterious golden light accumulating in his palm. If I want you to die, you have to die. No one can save you. Sir God He Yan's face suddenly changed and he roared in disbelief, ****. You're digging your own grave by being so stubborn. Even if you're a high-level Sir God, you'll die without a burial place. Are you crazy? Sir God He Yen was completely flustered. He couldn't imagine how arrogant and crazy Ji Tianqing was. He had made it so clear. Why wasn't Ji Tianqing afraid? However, the question was destined to never be answered. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing waved his right palm and there was boundless sacred golden light. It turned into a sword that could split heaven and earth and slashed at Sir God He Yen. This golden light was very special and mysterious. It didn't belong to any divine power that Sir God He Yen knew of, but it had supreme divine power that was superior to all other divine powers. The golden light was condensed and it was illusory. Time, space, and other divine powers couldn't stop it. Sir God He Yen was terrified and his soul almost left his body. He performed a forbidden unique skill with all his might and took out all his divine weapons and treasures to block the attack of the golden sword. But it was all in vain. The sacred golden sword pierced through the night sky as though it was nothing. It passed through the divine skill lights and a few divine weapons and hit Sir God He Yen. Swoosh! There was no dull explosion but only a soft sound that sounded like space being torn apart. Sir God He Yan's divine body was smashed into pieces by the sacred golden sword. It turned into billions of dust and dissipated in the night sky. Even his grayish-black divinity was split into two by the sacred golden sword. Then, the dazzling and sacred golden sword light disappeared in the night sky. The universe became dark again and everything returned to tranquility. Chapter 2969. Even though God Lord Black Flame had been famous for over 10,000 years and was a high God Lord. Even before his death, he didn't know that the divine golden sword that killed him was called World. That's right, it was the power of the five elements world. A divine sword condensed from the light of the world could naturally surpass all kinds of divine power. The battle was over. The dust and divine light that covered the sky gradually dissipated. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and removed the heavenly punishing sword array, causing all 9,000 sword lights to disappear. Green Summit Mountain had been completely destroyed, turning into a 300-meter-tall ruin filled with dirt and rubble. Around the ruin, several hundred miles of land was filled with deep pits and ravines. After this battle, the Northern Plains branch had been completely destroyed. More than 20 disciples of the Blood Sword sect, 3 deacons, and the Right Protector, God Lord Black Flame, had died on the spot. More than 2,000 vassals and several hundred guards of the Blood Sword sect had also been slaughtered. Such a shocking accomplishment was enough to shake the entire Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Ever since the Blood Blade sect had declared war on the Blood Sword sect, they had attacked several branches, but they had never achieved such a valiant feat. Ji Tianqing didn't feel happy or proud, and his reaction was very calm. It was as if he had done something insignificant, and all of this was to be expected. However, the fourth elder of the Blood Blade sect and the 40 or so disciples who had survived had personally witnessed the entire process. Now, they were all shocked to the extreme and fell into a daze for a long time. After a long time, the fourth elder and the disciples came back to their senses. They all flew toward Ji Tianqing in the night sky, letting out cries of disbelief. This is too inconceivable. This is simply a miracle. In just 45 minutes, he flattened the Northern Plains branch, killed more than 3,000 people, and even killed the left protector of the Blood Sword sect. This is the most glorious result our sect has achieved since the start of the war against the Blood Sword sect. Young Master Tianqing is mighty and domineering. This disciple's respect for you is like a surging river. With young Master Tianqing's help, our sect is like a tiger that has grown wings. This is a great blessing. No wonder young Master Tianqing is so confident and lawless. It's because he has the qualifications. Yes. An expert like young noble Tianqing is enough to look down on the entire Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. No matter how arrogant he is, it's only natural. Previously, we had some misunderstandings about young Master Tianqing. That was because we were blind and ignorant. Fortunately, young Master Tianqing didn't bicker with us. Otherwise, we would have turned into ashes long ago. Many disciples of the Blood Blade sect believed in the strong. If Ji Tianqing did not have much strength, but was very arrogant, then he would be the target of public criticism. However, his strength was unparalleled, and everyone had seen it with their own eyes. No matter how arrogant and overbearing he was, it was only natural. That was confidence. Soon, the fourth elder and his disciples arrived near Ji Tianqing. Everyone bowed in unison, expressing their heartfelt gratitude and respect to him. Young Master Tianqing, thank you for saving us. We owe you our lives. From now on, I will follow your lead, and I am willing to be your lackey. The fourth elder completely let go of his pride and dignity. While thanking Ji Tianqing, he didn't forget to flatter him. Many of the elite disciples also praised Ji Tianqing, expressing their warmest respect and gratitude. There were even more than a dozen martial arts disciples who had become Ji Tianqing's loyal fans. They supported him unconditionally, the most brainless fans. Originally. Tonight, the fourth elder and the Blood Blade sect's disciples were on a mission. Ji Tianqing was only there to supervise the battle. However, the situation was full of twists and turns. In the end, the fourth elder and his disciples were hiding on the side. Ji Tianqing bravely stepped forward at the critical moment and not only saved everyone, he also turned the tide. He single-handedly flattened the Northern Plains branch and killed all the enemies. This was too dramatic. The psychological impact it brought to the fourth elder and his disciples was unforgettable. Everyone was excited for a long time, unable to calm down. In the end, Ji Tianqing raised his hand and everyone quieted down. Everyone be quiet. This place is not far from Northern Plains City. I'm afraid the city has already sensed the battle just now. Clean up the battlefield as soon as possible, quickly evacuate this place and report back to Blood Blade sect. All the disciples nodded in unison and acknowledged the order. Now, everyone was in awe of him and obeyed his orders without hesitation. The fourth elder asked with concern, "Young Master Tianqing, where are you going? Are you not going to evacuate with us?" Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "My whereabouts have nothing to do with you." The fourth elder quickly apologized and said with an embarrassed smile, "I was rude, please forgive me." Ji Tianqing did not say anything else. He turned and flew into the night sky, disappearing into the southern horizon. The fourth elder and the others watched him leave. After that, everyone began to clean up the battlefield, searching for treasures and resources in the ruins. Unfortunately, many of the treasures were hidden deep in the mountain. After Green Summit Mountain was destroyed, those treasures were also destroyed. Large amounts of resources and treasures were buried deep in the ground and would be difficult to clean up in a short period of time. Helpless, the fourth elder and the disciples of Blood Blade sect could only scrounge up a portion of the treasures. When they sensed that a large number of guards had been dispatched from Northern Plains City, they quickly retreated. Not long after, the guard commander of Northern Plains City led a large number of guards to Green Summit Mountain. Everyone only saw that the originally bustling Qingfeng Mountain had already turned into a scene of desolation and devastation. They searched the surroundings but did not see a single living person. Naturally, they did not know who destroyed Green Summit Mountain. The matter of Blood Blade sect declaring war on Blood Sword sect was a tacit understanding among the upper echelons of Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. However, the two great sects were very tactful, and would not make a big fuss about it. They also could not let the garrisons and guards of the various counties catch them in the act. In the territory of Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, they had to take care of the face of the country's ruler and settle any grudges in secret. Otherwise, once the news spread, it would cause chaos among the people. Wouldn't that be slapping the ruler's face and challenging the laws of Divine Kingdom? After leaving Green Summit Mountain, the fourth elder and the elite disciples rode the black mist and quickly retreated. On the way, they were unable to suppress the excitement in their hearts and whispered to each other. "When I heard that young Master Tianqing defeated Left Emissary Jin in one move, I scoffed. Now, it seems that it must be true. That's right. Young Master Tianqing is so strong that he even killed God Monarch Black Flame. It's normal for him to defeat Left Emissary Jin. Tonight, Blood Sword sect set up an ambush and tricked us. If not for young Master Tianqing, we would have been buried in Green Summit Mountain. So, it's all thanks to young Master Tianqing that we were able to leave alive and make such great contributions. Young Master Tianqing is my idol. If anyone dares to criticize him in the future, I won't let them off. When we return to the branch and report what happened tonight to the sect, the elders and envoys will definitely be shocked, right?" Chapter 29:70. Seeing the disciples chatting excitedly, the fourth elder couldn't help but worry. Everyone, while you're happy, don't let your guard down. We still haven't returned to the branch. As long as they were traveling, they were still in danger. Anything could happen. Only when they returned to the branch could they settle down, rest, and celebrate. The Blood Blade sect also had a branch in Northern Plains County, in a city several million li away. They had to retreat to that branch to report the results of the battle and treat their injuries. After a few days of rest, if the sect didn't issue any new orders, they would use the teleportation array to leave Northern Plains County and return to the sect. In truth, Ji Tianqing had wrongly accused the Blood Blade sect. The Blood Sword sect would set up teleportation arrays in Green Peak Mountain to make it easier for the sect's experts to travel. The Blood Blade sect would naturally do the same. Within the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, the 9 important branches all had teleportation arrays. In the event of an emergency, they could provide reinforcements or retreat as quickly as possible. It wasn't just the large sects that would do this. Even the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom would follow suit. The county lord estates of the various counties were all connected by teleportation arrays that led to the vicinity of the royal capital. In this way, the king's decrees and orders could be spread to the various counties as quickly as possible. However, only high god lords could set up teleportation arrays that could cross tens of millions of li, and they were also extremely expensive. Each activation would consume nearly 1 billion god stones. Thus, unless absolutely necessary, no one would rashly activate a teleportation array. This thing was truly too extravagant. Under the pitch-black curtain of night, the black dragon carried Ji Tianqing and sped through the sky, heading straight for the south. Ji Tianqing sat on the dragon's back with his eyes closed, silently pondering God Lord Black Flame's words. Not long ago, he had killed 2 elders of the Blood Sword sect and the left protector, Lord Kenshin. Tonight, he had killed God Lord Black Flame. The left and right protectors of the Blood Sword sect had all died, leaving only the 3 elders and the sect master and vice-sect master. It was truly a case of withering experts and greatly weakening the sect. To Ji Tianqing, the Blood Sword sect was no longer a concern. The 3 elders were all middle god lords and could be easily killed. The sect master and vice-sect master were both high-level Sir Gods and their abilities were slightly stronger than Sir God Black Flame. With Ji Tianqing's strength and methods, he could kill them one by one. It was just a little troublesome. Of course, his strength had improved again in the past month. Presently, he already reached late-stage 2nd-level Divine Lord and was not far from 3rd-level Divine Lord realm. Once he broke through to the 3rd level of the Divine Lord realm, he would have a much easier time dealing with the 2 sect masters of the Blood Sword sect. The Blood Sword sect was nothing to fear. Ji Tianqing's target was the number 1 sect, Hetian sect. He had previously investigated the information of the 6 major sections. The He Tian sect was indeed the strongest among the 6 great sects in terms of power and number of experts. Moreover, this sect was also the most secretive and low-key. He didn't rely on any of the princes of the Blood Flame Divine Country, so he had a high status and didn't get involved. Ji Tianqing had once thought that since the He Tian sect was so powerful, could it be related to the monarch? This idea was immediately rejected by him. The monarch controlled the entire divine country, so why would he need to raise a sect? However, God Lord Black Flame swore that the He Tian sect's strength was only the tip of the iceberg. Their true strength and foundation were far beyond anyone's imagination. It was very terrifying. This was very thought-provoking. Since it has nothing to do with the monarch and is the number 1 sect in the divine country, they can still maintain an uninvolved attitude. Combined with God Lord Black Flame's reaction, could it be that the Blood Flame Divine Country's He Tian sect is just a branch of the He Tian sect? The He Tian sect has also established branches in the other divine countries. Or even the real headquarters of the He Tian sect is in the Great Yen Empire. Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment before this bold idea appeared in his mind. Although this guess was a little absurd. If he said it out loud, no one would believe him. However, he knew that the more absurd something was, the closer it was to the truth. This is just my guess. It's hard to confirm whether it's true or not. It seems that I have to find a reliable person to inquire about it. If the He Tian Sect's foundation is really as I guessed, then I still have to be careful. Although he was very confident and domineering in his actions. However, he would not take risks without preparation. What he needed was to devise strategies and predict the future. Everything was under his control. After thinking for a while, Ji Tianqing took out a communication jade slip and sent a secret letter to left emissary Jin. Not only did he describe the process of what happened tonight in the secret letter, he also inquired about the He Tian sect. Originally, Ji Tianqing and left emissary Jin only had a cooperative relationship. They were not very close and trusted each other. The people he trusted the most were Qi Tianlong and Ning Qingang. However, he believed that aristocratic families like Qi Tianlong and Ning Qingang might not know the details of the He Tian sect. Left emissary Jin would know more inside information. After waiting for half an hour, a spiritual light flew from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. When the spiritual light dissipated, a jade slip appeared. It was from left emissary Jin. Ji Tianqing held the jade slip and read the contents with his divine sense. It was not words, but left emissary Jin's words. Oh my God! I thought that the attack on the Northern Plains branch would be very covert and no one would know. I did not expect the people of the Blood Sword sect to set up an ambush in advance. Fortunately, young Master Tianqing went with us. Otherwise, the fourth elder and those disciples would have been buried in the Green Summit Mountain. Young Master Tianqing's strength and methods are really impressive. You killed God Monarch He Yen. You also got rid of a general of the Blood Sword sect. Our plan will definitely succeed. With such an outstanding contribution, this monarch will definitely report it to the sect master and reward you according to your merits. Left emissary Jin's tone was very excited. It could be heard that he was a little emotional. After all, tonight's matter was full of twists and turns. Even just listening to it was very exciting. After talking about business, left emissary Jin said in a low voice, "Young Master Tianqing, you suspect that the two god monarchs invited by God Monarch He Yen are from the He Tian sect? This should not be. The He Tian sect has always stayed out of things and would not intervene in the disputes of other sects. Young Master Tianqing, do not believe God Monarch He Yan's one-sided story. Perhaps he deliberately made it up to save his life. Although I do not know much about the He Tian sect, I believe that with the He Tian sect's status and strength, it is impossible for them to help the Blood Sword sect. Apart from this, there was nothing else in the jade slip. Left emissary Jin was not clear about the details of the He Tian sect. In fact, he did not know as much as God Monarch He Yen. Ji Tianqing sighed and put away the jade slip. He took out the godhead fragments of God Monarch He Yen, the 3 Blood Sword sect deacons, and the 2 mid-level god monarchs. Since I can't get anything out of them, I will extract their divine soul memories to find the answer. Ji Tianqing picked out the godheads of God Monarch He Yen and the 2 mid-level god monarchs and began to refine them, extracting their divine soul memories. Chapter 2971. The first thing Ji Tianqing refined was the godhead fragment of God Monarch Black Flame. During the previous battle, Ji Tianqing had discovered that this person had grasped over 100 kinds of laws. As expected, God Monarch Black Flame's godhead had condensed over 90 kinds of laws. This number was extremely shocking, far surpassing the number of middle god monarchs. One could imagine that God Monarch Black Flame had cultivated for at least 20,000 years to have such a rich foundation. Ji Tianqing first refined the memories of this person's God soul before taking away his divine Tao laws. After 6 hours, he finally absorbed God Monarch Black Flame's memories. Unfortunately, God Monarch Black Flame's godhead had been poisoned and his God soul's memories were damaged and incomplete. Ji Tianqing picked out the important information and memorized it. Through these important memories, he gained a better understanding of the Blood Sword sect. Although he didn't know everything, he knew at least 80% of it, including many secrets. After all, God Monarch Black Flame was one of the 4 elders of the Blood Sword sect. He had witnessed the establishment, rise, and prosperity of the Blood Sword sect. Ji Tianqing now knew that the Blood Sword sect was extremely ambitious and their true strength was far beyond what it appeared to be. Moreover, the 2 god monarchs that had come from the Highland County were indeed from the Whole Heaven sect. Those 2 god monarchs had originally helped the Blood Sword sect defend the Highland County branch against the attack of the Blood Blade sect. Unfortunately, God Monarch Black Flame didn't know the identity of those 2 god monarchs in the Whole Heaven sect. He also didn't know why the Whole Heaven sect, which had a transcendent status, would help the Blood Sword sect. He had asked the 2 sect masters about this matter. But the 2 sect masters kept it a secret and didn't answer his questions. They only vaguely reminded him that this matter was decided by important people and that the Blood Sword sect only needed to follow orders. God Monarch Black Flame was also a smart person and guessed the reason, so he didn't ask again. It really is the Whole Heaven sect. The prince behind the Blood Sword sect really has some means to be able to ask the Whole Heaven sect for help. Even God Monarch Black Flame doesn't know the inside story. It seems this matter is extremely secretive. Why would the Whole Heaven sect help that prince? What conditions could that prince offer that would tempt the Whole Heaven sect? Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered for a long time, but he couldn't figure out the answer. Now that things had developed to this point, he had also experienced so many bloody battles. With Ning Qinggang and left emissary Jin's advice, he was very clear about the situation in the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Currently, the 3 princes vying for the throne had all roped in the 6 great sections. The 3rd prince had the support of the 4 Symbols sect, and the 2nd prince had subdued the Evil Blood Palace and many other sects, as well as many border officials and nobles. As for the most low-key 5th prince, he was the backer of the Blood Sword sect. At first, Ji Tianqing did not take the 5th prince seriously. This person was the youngest and had the weakest foundation. Even the sect he had roped in was the 5th-ranked Blood Sword sect, which was only slightly stronger than the Blood Blade sect. However, the appearance of Hetian's sect changed Ji Tianqing's view. He vaguely felt that the most low-key 5th prince could be the most ambitious and shrewd person. Otherwise, how could he have asked the He Tian sect for help? Ji Tianqing thought hard to no avail, so he put this matter aside and began to refine the divine Tao laws of God Monarch He Yen. This time, the cultivation took even longer. Ji Tianqing had cultivated 90% of the divine Tao laws that God Monarch He Yen had mastered. There were only 12 divine Tao laws that he had not cultivated before. Therefore, he took out the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda and entered the distorted spacetime to cultivate. It took him a total of 20 days to cultivate the 12 divine Tao laws. At this point, the number of divine Tao laws that Ji Tianqing had mastered had increased to 162. He did not leave the distorted spacetime. Instead, he took out the godheads of 2 middle-level divine lords and began to refine them. These 2 middle-level divine lords were both in the 6th heaven realm. The number of divine Tao laws that they had condensed was about 70, which was considered relatively strong. Ji Tianqing first refined the memories of their divine souls and read the important information from them. After a day, he figured out the situation. These 2 middle-level divine lords were indeed from the He Tian sect. However, they were not deacons or elders of the He Tian sect. They were only guests in name and had the same status as elders. Therefore, the 2 guests did not know much about the secrets of the He Tian sect. They only knew that the He Tian sect was near the capital, in the Blood Flame County's 6 Directions mountain range. The He Tian sect had a strong foundation and was very powerful. Its status was very high. Even the members of the royal family had to be courteous to the He Tian sect. As guests of the He Tian sect, they were respected wherever they went and were respected and flattered by others. For so many years, the two of them had abused their power and enjoyed themselves to their heart's content, wantonly amassing wealth and seizing treasures, living a very carefree life. They had only done a few things that really required them to put their lives on the line. After all, ordinary forces did not dare to provoke the He Tian sect. What danger could there be? Even this time, when they were ordered to help the Blood Sword sect, the two guests regarded it as a good job and gladly accepted it. In their opinion, the Blood Sword sect would definitely be respectful to them and give them gifts to curry favor. The things that really needed to be fought would be left to the Blood Sword sect. The two of them were just going through the motions to represent the He Tian sect's attitude, and that was it. However, the two guests did not expect that the result would be the opposite. Their fates would be so miserable. They had been enjoying life in Highland County when they suddenly received a message from God Monarch Black Flame and rushed over to help. As soon as they arrived at Green Summit Mountain, they saw ruins everywhere and that God Monarch Black Flame was also heavily injured. Not long after fighting, the two of them were poisoned and lost the ability to fight. Then, the two of them were killed by Ji Tianqing. What an unjust death! Ji Tianqing roughly combed through the memories of the two guests. He could not help but feel disappointed when he did not find the answer he wanted. It's a pity that the two guests' strength and status were not too high. They could not come into contact with the core secrets of the He Tian sect. They did not know how strong the He Tian sect was, nor did they know if the other divine kingdoms had branches. They did not even know why the He Tian sect interfered in the battle between the two sects and helped the Blood Sword sect. Ji Tianqing could only comfort himself. If he met the elders and protectors of the He Tian sect in the future, he might be able to find out some secrets. Putting this matter aside for the time being, he began to refine the divine Tao laws of the two guests. The two guests had refined more than 70 divine Tao laws, and most of them were duplicates. Ji Tianqing made a selection and only picked out 8 laws to cultivate. Therefore, he devoured their godheads and deprived them of the 8 divine Tao laws. This cultivation lasted for another half a month. When he successfully refined 8 divine Tao laws, the number of divine Tao laws he controlled had reached 170. At this time, he had already cultivated in the distorted spacetime for more than 30 days. With the addition of 20 divine Tao laws and the godheads of the 3 divine monarchs, his strength had greatly increased. He had finally reached the peak of the 2nd stage and was about to break through to the 3rd stage. Therefore, he stayed in the distorted spacetime and continued to cultivate in seclusion. Not only did he refine the godheads of the 3 Blood Sword sect deacons, he also consumed a large number of divine stones, divine pills, and divine crystals to rapidly increase his strength. End of chapter. Chapter 2972. This time, Ji Tianqing wanted to break through to the 3rd level of the divine monarch realm. Not only did he swallow the godheads of several divine monarchs, he also used up more than 3 billion worth of cultivation resources. Moreover, he cultivated bitterly for an entire year. He finally broke through to the 3rd level of the divine monarch realm. His divine power and godhead became even stronger, and his combat strength also increased by several times. Although he was still a lower divine monarch. But if he met a 7th stage divine monarch again, he could easily defeat them. Even if he met an 8th stage divine monarch, he had a very high chance of winning. Blood Sword sect's threat to him weakened further. Ji Tianqing adjusted his breathing for a few days, then left the divine pagoda and returned to the Black Dragon's back. He cultivated in the distorted space for more than a year, but only 8 days had passed in the outside world. At this time, the the Black Dragon had just left Baiyuan County and flew into Hailin County's territory. Xian Yu had been cultivating in seclusion for too long, so she came out to take a breather. She turned into a 2-foot-long ice fox and lay beside Ji Tianqing. A pair of ice-blue eyes stared at Ji Tianqing for a moment, and immediately revealed a look of surprise. "Old Ji, you broke through another level." She sensed that Ji Tianqing's aura had become even more unfathomable, so she couldn't help but ask. "N." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and responded. Xian Yu said enviously, "Even if you're the reincarnation of a divine king, you shouldn't be so abnormal. How long have you been in the divine realm?" "In less than a year, you broke through to the 3rd level of the divine monarch realm. Such a terrifying cultivation speed, even you in your previous life couldn't compare." Ji Tianqing said with a calm expression, "If I can't surpass my previous life in this life, what's the point of being reborn? Moreover, Wuhan is still in the dragon realm, his whereabouts unknown. I must recover to the divine king realm as soon as possible and go to the dragon realm to find him." Xian Yu nodded in agreement. She said somewhat ruefully, "We can understand your feelings. But your cultivation speed is so fast that it makes everyone feel extremely pressured. We've been cultivating bitterly day and night, only wanting to use more time and effort to catch up to you as soon as possible. But until now, none of us have broken through to the divine monarch realm. The gap between you and me is getting bigger and bigger. Old Ji, it's been a long time since you've worked with everyone. It's been too long since you've relaxed." Xian Yu said emotionally. Ji Tianqing had only been in the divine realm for a few months, but she, Yun Yao, and the others had been in seclusion in the divine pagoda for decades. Ji Tianqing was poked at the sore spot in his heart. He was also filled with sadness and helplessness. He said faintly, "Yes. Currently, I don't have a fixed residence and I'm drifting all over the place. I just want to raise my strength as soon as possible." It had been a long time since he had reunited with his family and friends. "But I had no choice. My current situation can be described as having enemies on all sides. Only by hiding everyone can we protect you. Moreover, we won't leave any openings for our opponents, and we won't give them any chance to take advantage of us." Xian Yu nodded and sighed, "That's right. Currently, everyone only has the strength of a heavenly deity, while your opponents are all divine lords. If you take everyone with you, the enemy will definitely find a flaw and create an opportunity to blackmail you." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "It's good that you understand. Actually, Yao Yao, Ku, and Wushuang all understand this. They will understand me. They will understand because they don't want to be a burden to me." Xian Yu no longer discussed this topic and turned to admire the scenery. At this time, Black Dragon asked in a dull voice, "Old Ji, we've already stepped into Hailin County. Where do we go next?" Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and said, "All the way south. After crossing Hailin County, we'll reach Shanyang County. After crossing 3 more counties, we'll reach the royal capital. You don't need to stay in Hailin County. Go straight south and head to Shanyang County." Black Dragon was startled and asked in disbelief, "Old Ji, you're planning to go straight to the Blood Sword Sex base and head to the Dragon Blood Forbidden area?" Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "I've already killed nearly half of the Blood Sword Sex divine lords. Only 2 sect masters, 3 elders, and a few consecrators remain. The matter of destroying the Blood Sword Sex branch will be left to the Blood Blade sect. What I want to do is to rendezvous with the Blood Blade Sex experts, charge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden area, and kill my way into the Blood Sword Sex base. The sooner we deal with the Blood Sword sect, the better." Xian Yu was rather shocked and asked in disbelief, "The Blood Sword sect is one of the 6 great sections. Are you confident in dealing with them quickly? What are your plans after dealing with the Blood Sword sect?" Ji Tianqing said without hesitation, "If the Blood Sword sect is successfully eradicated, we'll continue south to Blood Flame County and enter the royal capital. Calculating the time, the divine blood ceremony will begin at that time. Xian Yu couldn't help but roll his eyes and say with a strange tone, I remember you saying that the divine blood ceremony is a ceremony for the blood flame divine kingdom to promote new talents and nurture geniuses. You can already destroy the blood sword sect, and your strength is comparable to a peak expert, yet you still want to join in the fun? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by those experts? You want to compete with juniors on the same stage and fight for cultivation resources? Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said seriously, what do you know? The blood flame sacred tree in the royal family's collection is a rare treasure that only appears once in 10,000 years. Halfway through his words, he realized that he had said too much and hurriedly stopped. Black Dragon's body shook, revealing a shocked expression. Xian Yu was also rather surprised. He looked at him with a smile and said meaningfully, Old Ji, you really are lawless and do as you please. TSK. You really don't have good intentions by participating in the divine blood ceremony. Others are asking for the sacred tree's blessing, but you want to take away the entire sacred tree. Isn't that too crazy? Think carefully. When the time comes, the blood flame divine kingdom will definitely be driven mad by you and will spare no expense to kill you. Ji Tianqing pretended to be dignified and said, don't talk nonsense. How could there be such a thing? Am I that kind of person? Xian Yu and Black Dragon nodded at the same time. Ji Tianqing was speechless. He glared at Xian Yu and said grumpily, release time is over. You should go back and cultivate. Xian Yu pouted and muttered, your scheme was exposed and you became angry from embarrassment. You're still so petty. After saying this, she didn't wait for Ji Tianqing to refute and went back into seclusion. Black Dragon didn't say anything else and flew silently. At the same time, Shanyang County, within the Forbidden Dragon Blood Ground. Everything within a radius of 10,000 miles was blood red. The earth and mountains were all dark red in color, which made them look extremely evil. There was no vegetation in this area, but it was filled with a mysterious power. This invisible divine power gave people an extremely oppressive feeling and was filled with killing intent. This was very compatible with the cultivation methods of the Blood Sword sect. The disciples of the Blood Sword sect could cultivate here with twice the result with half the effort. The entire Forbidden Dragon Blood Ground was covered by a dozen or so large arrays, becoming the private territory of the Blood Sword sect. Outsiders couldn't see the situation in the Forbidden Dragon Blood Ground, nor could they take half a step inside. At the center of the Forbidden Dragon Blood Ground was a dark red mountain peak that was thousands of meters tall. This mountain peak was almost perfectly straight and looked like it had been carved by a blade or an axe. It was the headquarters of the Blood Sword sect. The disciples of the Blood Sword sect called it the Blood Sword Sacred Ground. Chapter 2973. The core disciples of the Blood Sword sect lived in the Blood Sword Sacred Ground. There were more than 600 disciples, dozens of deacons, and a few elders. They had all cultivated the divine abilities and secret arts of the Blood Sword sect and had received the divine Tao true inheritance. There were also 3,000 odd workers who did not have the right to live on the sacred mountain. In the dark red earth and mountains around the sacred mountain, a large number of buildings had been constructed for the workers to live and work in. It was currently night time. The dragon blood forbidden land was completely silent, and the cold wind howled. At the peak of the sacred mountain, in a certain majestic and domineering palace, there was a spacious and dazzling secret room. A handsome god race member with a head full of white hair and wearing a black robe was sitting cross-legged in a dark red pool of blood. This god race member was handsome and bewitching, and he looked young. His face was white and translucent, and he had a pair of elf-like pointy ears. On his forehead, there was a lifelike mark of a blood sword. A ball of dark red and purple blood light enveloped him. It flickered and flickered continuously, emitting a frighteningly powerful aura. His eyes were tightly shut as he sat there quietly, as if he was in a deep sleep. However, the dark red blood in the pool of blood was constantly boiling, increasing his strength. At this moment, a voice sounded from outside the door of the secret room. "Sect Master, there's news from the Northern Plains branch." The person who spoke was a muscular old man with a head full of purple hair. He wore a purple robe and had a dark golden belt around his waist. The old man wore a luxurious golden crown, and his eyes and face were filled with the vicissitudes of life. He gave off a noble and dignified aura. He was a high god lord who had been famous for many years, the vice sect master of the blood sword sect, Yan Hua. Although the white-haired god race member in the secret room looked younger and more handsome. That was because the sect master had cultivated a divine ability and secret art that made him look like that. The sect master's actual age was far greater than Yan Hua's, and his strength was greater as well. After a while, the white-haired sect master of the blood sword sect slowly opened his eyes. His purple eyes were emotionless as he asked in a deep voice, "What's the result?" Outside the secret room, Yan Hua bowed slightly and replied, "The Northern Plains branch has been completely destroyed, including the teleportation array. God Lord Black Flame and the disciples guarding the branch have all been killed. The 2 god lords that had rushed over from the Sea Forest Commandery to reinforce them have also been killed." The sect master of the blood sword sect's expression finally changed. He frowned and asked in an even deeper tone, "It's impossible for an elder of the blood blade sect to do this. Who did it personally?" "Sect master of the blood sword. Tianqing. It's him again." Sect master blood sword narrowed his eyes as a cold glint flashed through his eyes. This kid's strength is actually so strong that even Black Flame is not his match. Yan Hua was silent for a while before he nodded and said, "According to Great Elder's investigation at the scene, Tianqing should also be a Sir God and he is stronger than Sir God Black Flame." The sect master of the blood sword sect remained silent, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Yan Hua thought for a moment before continuing, 2 guests of the Heavenly Unity sect have been killed. This subordinate didn't dare to report this to the Heavenly Unity sect in order to avoid conflict. "Sect master, please make the decision." The sect master of the blood sword sect said indifferently, "Those 2 guests have been domineering in the Heavenly Unity sect for a long time. They've received a lot of benefits, but they haven't contributed much. Even if they've been killed, the Heavenly Unity sect won't be so angry. Just report it as it is." Yan Hua hurriedly agreed and sneered, "This subordinate will report it as it is. The 2 guests of the Heavenly Unity sect have been killed, and their reputation has been damaged. They definitely won't let Tianqing off. Perhaps the Heavenly Unity sect will kill that brat without us doing anything." The experts of the blood sword sect had died one after another, and their strength had been depleted. However, they had to kill Tianqing. Yan Hua didn't want to do it himself, so he wanted to borrow someone else's knife. It would be best if the experts of the Heavenly Unity sect stepped in. Unexpectedly, the sect master of the blood sword sect frowned and coldly reprimanded, "Absurd. That brat has a blood feud with our sect, so it should be our sect that kills him. If we have to rely on the Heavenly Unity sect for such a small matter, won't our sect lose all face and be ridiculed for being incompetent? How could an incompetent sect share the Lord's burdens and solve his problems? How can our Lord stand tall and cooperate with the Heavenly Unity sect on equal terms?" Yan Hua's body trembled, and his expression became somewhat unsightly. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Sect master is right. This subordinate's thinking is too simple." After a pause, he continued, "Since we can't rely on the Heavenly Unity sect for this matter, we can only take revenge ourselves. And the sooner, the better. The longer we delay, the more our sect's prestige will be damaged. How about this? This subordinate will gather 2 elders and 3 reverends to go to Highland County to kill that brat." Yan Hua volunteered, wanting to kill Tianqing as quickly as possible. However, the forces he could mobilize were the 3 elders and 3 reverends. These were the only 6 mid-level divine lords left in the Blood Sword sect. The Grand Elder had to guard the dragon blood forbidden ground and could not leave. Therefore, the helpers that Yan Hua could bring with him were only 2 elders and 3 consecrators. The Blood Sword sect master coldly rejected, "There's no need to rush. Don't be impatient. Our sect has tried to kill that brat several times, but we've failed time and time again. Every time, we thought we understood him well enough and found out his strength and background. However, when the operation began, we discovered that his strength and methods exceeded our expectations. Even now, we still haven't seen through his background." Yan Hua was shocked and said in disbelief, "Sect Master, you mean, that brat's strength is not only above Divine Lord Black Flame, but even stronger?" The Blood Sword sect master nodded slightly and said solemnly, "Of course. He can kill Black Flame in a short time, kill thousands of people, and flatten the entire Northern Plains branch. From this, it can be seen that his true strength is above yours, and he can even stand shoulder to shoulder with me." Yan Hua's eyes widened in shock. How is this possible? The Blood Sword sect master ignored him and continued, "Most importantly, this brat is extremely scheming and ruthless. He's extremely difficult to deal with. If it were any other divine lord, they would have factions, family, and friends to tie them down. Our sect can use all sorts of schemes and start with the people around him. We can always find his weakness and force him to submit. However, this Jianqing has always been a loner. Even the factions he's come into contact with are only casual acquaintances and don't have deep relationships. This way, we don't even have the conditions to threaten him. That brat has no weakness at all. He's simply invulnerable. The only way to get rid of him was to use all of his strength and crush him to death with an unstoppable force. We can't leave any leeway, or else he might be able to escape death." End of chapter. Chapter 2974. Yan Hua nodded in agreement at Sect Master Blood Sword's words. He thought for a moment and understood what Sect Master Blood Sword meant. Soon after, a look of deep shock appeared on his face as he said in disbelief, "Sect Master, could it be that you want to?" Sect Master Blood Sword nodded and said in a serious tone, "Send people to keep an eye on his whereabouts and mobilize 2 elders, 3 reverends, and a large number of disciples. Use all the forces we can mobilize to set up a trap at the border between Hailin County and Shanyang County. I will come out of seclusion in 5 days and meet up with all of you. We can only succeed in this battle. Failure is not an option." Yan Hua could feel the sect master's determination. His spirits were lifted, and he bowed solemnly. "This subordinate obeys. Don't worry, sect master. This battle concerns the reputation and future of our sect. This subordinate will do his best. If the plan fails, this subordinate is willing to commit suicide." Sect Master Blood Sword said indifferently, "If the plan fails, you will definitely die on the spot. How will you have the chance to commit suicide?" Yan Hua's body stiffened, and he nodded again. "This subordinate understands. This subordinate will go and make the arrangements now." After saying that, Yan Hua turned and left. Within the secret room, Sect Master Blood Sword slowly closed his eyes. The blood sword symbol on his forehead flickered with scarlet light and killing intent soared into the sky. The blood sword that has been sealed for 1,000 years is about to come out of its sheath and drink blood. Sect Master Blood Sword muttered to himself in a cold and sinister tone. In the next few days, the atmosphere in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land became extremely tense and solemn. The entire Shanyang County was filled with undercurrents and killing intent. Sect Master Blood Sword was the local tyrant of this county. Everyone, from the county lords to the various factions, obeyed Sect Master Blood Sword's orders. The various factions received Sect Master Blood Sword's orders and sent their elites and experts to the vast mountain range at the border. The vast mountain range was located at the border between Hailin County and Shanyang County. It was a mountain range with a circumference of 1,000,000 miles and was covered in dense forests. The mountains were high and treacherous. The experts of the various factions didn't know the goal of the vast mountain range. They didn't know what mission they were going to carry out or what dangers they would face. However, the various factions guessed that this mission was definitely going to be a big one. The target of the Blood Sword sect was definitely a peak power. Some well-informed forces knew that the Blood Blade sect had been attacking the Blood Sword sect recently. Therefore, everyone thought that the Blood Sword sect's goal was to ambush the Blood Blade sect. A few days later, in the vast mountain range, there were over 4,000 Heaven God experts and over 20 Sir God experts gathered. Most of these experts were from Shanyang County, and some were from Hailin County. Even the second elder, third elder, and 3 reverends of the Blood Sword sect had personally come to the mountain range to instruct the experts to set up traps and formations. For a time, the boundless mountain range was filled with figures and murderous auras. Even the demonic beasts and divine beasts living in the mountain range felt a strong sense of danger and migrated and fled. On this day, Ji Tianqing was riding on the Black Dragon, flying near the Hailin prefectural city. In the evening, a spiritual light suddenly flew from the horizon and landed in front of him. The spiritual light dissipated, revealing a communication jade slip. Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He picked up the communication jade slip and frowned as soon as he read it. It was a message from the Blood Blade sect's left emissary Jean. The content was as follows. Young Master Tianqing, a few days ago, you destroyed the Northern Plains branch and killed Sir God Black Flame, dealing a heavy blow to the Blood Sword sect. This matter dealt a great blow to the Blood Sword sect's power and reputation, which made us excited. However, in the past few days, our sect spies have discovered that there are undercurrents in the Hailin and Shanyang counties. The Blood Sword sect has issued a secret order to gather a large number of experts in the mountain range. Even the 2 elders and 3 reverends of the Blood Sword sect have come out in full force to personally oversee the situation in the mountain range. Although our sect spies haven't found out the exact plan of the Blood Sword sect. There are rumors in the pugilistic world that the Blood Sword sect is doing this to ambush us. However, our sect's most recent target is the Blood Sword sect's branch in the other 2 counties. Therefore, I suspect that the Blood Sword sect's target is you. However, I find it hard to believe that the Blood Sword sect would actually go all out in full force to deal with you. I hereby send you a message to remind you to take a detour and avoid entering the vast mountain range. After reading the message, Ji Tianqing put away the jade slip and a cold smile appeared on his face. As I expected, the Blood Sword sect can't sit still anymore. Ji Tianqing had long expected that the Blood Sword sect would have such a reaction. This also proved that the Blood Sword sect's experts had withered and their strength was empty. They were already at the end of their rope. I just broke through to the 3rd layer a few days ago. It's a good opportunity to practice on the Blood Sword sect. Ji Tianqing sneered and began to reply to left emissary Jean. I had long expected that the Blood Sword sect's strength would be empty. They would definitely gather all their strength and release their strongest attack to deal with me. For this monarch, this is undoubtedly a great danger, but it is also an excellent opportunity. Knowing that there are tigers on the mountain, I still want to go there. I will pass through the mountain range as usual and have a decisive battle with the Blood Sword sect. If I can finish this battle in one go, it would be for the best. Even if I can't obtain a complete victory, I can still heavily injure the Blood Sword sect. After that, the Blood Blade sect will do their best to follow me into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land and complete the mission. Ji Tianqing wrote these words on the jade slip and sent it out. After an hour, left emissary Jean did not reply. Ji Tianqing guessed that this matter was too serious for left emissary Jean to make a decision. After another 15 minutes, left emissary Jin finally replied. His tone was very solemn and filled with deep anxiety. Young Master Tianqing, the Blood Sword sect has already set up an inescapable net in the vast mountain range. You must not go there. Moreover, our sect has just received a piece of news. The Blood Sword sect's master has said that he will leave seclusion and head to the vast mountain range to invite you to meet him there. When the time comes, he will have a public duel with you to determine victory and defeat. If you lose to him, you can either commit suicide or submit to the Blood Sword sect. If he loses to you, the Blood Sword sect will disband and no longer be your enemy. This is clearly a provocation. The Blood Sword sect's master wants to trick you into going to the vast mountain range and then gather all his forces to attack you. According to our sect's understanding of the Blood Sword sect's master, this person is sinister and ruthless. He will stop at nothing and is definitely not a straightforward and upright person. You must not be fooled and must not believe his words. As a precaution, young Master Tianqing, please hurry to Hailin City as soon as possible. I, the right emissary, and the vice sect master will meet up with you as soon as possible. Evidently, left emissary Jin was worried that Ji Tianqing would be too conceited and really head to the vast mountain range to fight the Blood Sword sect's master. In order to prevent this from happening, he did not hesitate to drag the right emissary and the vice sect master to personally protect and persuade Ji Tianqing. Chapter 2975. Ji Tianqing could empathize with left emissary Jin's anxiety and worry. After all, he had already killed several experts of the Blood Sword sect. Even Sir God Black Flame, an upper-level Sir God, was killed by him. In the eyes of the Blood Sword sect and the Blood Blade sect, he was a genuine upper-level Sir God. The Blood Blade sect valued him more and treated him as their strongest ally. How could they let anything happen to him? Ji Tianqing held the jade slip and thought for a moment before replying to left emissary Jin. I've arrived at Hailin County City. I'll be waiting for you at the unnamed villa in the southern suburbs. After sending the message, he let the Black Dragon turn around and fly to Hailin County City. An hour later, the Black Dragon arrived at the southern suburbs of the county city and landed on the top of a mountain. On the lush green mountain, there was an old and dilapidated villa called the Unnamed Villa. A few hundred years ago, this place was once prosperous and bustling with activity. But now, the villa was dilapidated and covered with moss and vines. Many of the houses and palaces had collapsed. Ji Tianqing put the Black Dragon into the Divine Pagoda and stood alone on a dilapidated palace, quietly watching the sunset. After waiting for about an hour, night fell. A purple light flew from the direction of the county city and arrived at the unnamed villa as fast as lightning. Swoosh! The purple light dissipated and 3 figures appeared. The leader was a burly and dignified golden-robed man. He was left emissary Jin. Next to him was a stooped purple-robed elder with a blood dragon walking stick. He was the right emissary of the Blood Blade sect. As for the blurry figure behind them, it was both a man and a divine beast. He was the deputy sect leader. After the two sides met, left emissary Jin let out a sigh of relief and saluted first. Greetings, young Master Tianqing. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and asked, left emissary Jin, why don't you introduce these two? Left emissary Jin pointed to the purple-robed elder beside him and introduced, this is the right emissary of our sect, Blood Dragon Elder. Then, he pointed at the illusory figure behind him and said, this is our sect's vice-sect master, the famous Sir God Blood Illusion. The Blood Dragon Right Ambassador and Sir God Blood Illusion nodded at Ji Tianqing. Although they were seniors who had been famous for many years, they treated Ji Tianqing as equals and did not dare to slight him. After all, in the divine world, strength was the only thing that mattered. After the two sides greeted each other, left emissary Jin waved his hand and formed a divine formation that enveloped the entire unnamed villa. As a result, everything in the villa was isolated. The meeting and secret conversation between the three of them would not be discovered by the outside world. Left Envoy Jean said with a complicated expression, "Young Master Tianqing, the Blood Sword sect seems to have been forced into a corner. That's why they're so impatient, wanting to get rid of you as soon as possible. I'm extremely worried that you've fallen for the Blood Sword sect master's trap and really gone to the boundless mountain range to fight him. That guy wasn't some famous senior. He never kept his word and didn't care about his reputation. Therefore, we hurriedly rushed over from the headquarters to discuss countermeasures with you face to face." Ji Tianqing knew that the headquarters of the Blood Sword sect was in a certain county in the south, tens of millions of li away from here. To rush over from the headquarters of the Blood Sword sect, they must have used a teleportation formation and passed through several counties. Therefore, he said with a smile, "You must have paid a price of several billion divine stones to rush over this time, right?" Left Envoy Jean smiled embarrassedly and said somewhat awkwardly, "We've made a fool of ourselves in front of you, young Master Tianqing. We were also worried about your safety." The Blood Dragon Right Ambassador hurriedly explained, "Young Master Tianqing, our sect treats you as our most reliable ally. We have great trust and regard you highly. As long as we can ensure your safety, spending several billion divine stones is nothing. After all, the value of an ally like you is immeasurable." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "All right, let's not talk about these pleasantries. Tell me about your plan." This time, Left Envoy Jean and Blood Dragon Right Ambassador remained silent. The blurry Sir God Blood Illusion opened his mouth and said, "Young Master Tianqing, our plan has progressed to this point and victory is already in our grasp. We've already uprooted 10 of the Blood Sword sect's branches. Nearly half of the Blood Sword sect's Sir God experts have also been killed by you. We only need to carry out the plan step by step and don't need to fight the Blood Sword sect head-on. Therefore, we would like to invite you to our sect's headquarters and stay there for a while. On the day of the final battle, we'll charge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land together and destroy the Blood Sword sect in one fell swoop." Ji Tianqing knew that the Blood Sword sect was ranked last among the 6 great sects and had the shallowest foundation. Moreover, the other sects had been roped in by the royal family. Only the Blood Sword sect had no one to rely on. Therefore, the Blood Sword sect was anxious to gain a foothold and expand their influence. Only by seizing the opportunity to destroy the Blood Sword sect and replace it could they quickly strengthen the Blood Sword sect. However, the Blood Sword sect's foundation was weak and they could not advance with their movement techniques. They could only fight steadily and surely. This was why they valued him so much and were unwilling to take risks. However, the Blood Sword sect's plan did not match Ji Tianqing's thoughts. He shook his head and said, "I can understand your sect's stability. However, this is too much of a waste of time. I'm not willing to wait that long." Left Emissary Jean immediately became anxious and asked worriedly, "Young Master Tianqing, you're not thinking of going to the Misty Mountain Range to fight the sect master of the Blood Sword sect to the death, right?" Ji Tianqing shook his head again and sneered, If the sect master of the Blood Sword sect does not say so, I'm prepared to go to the Misty Mountain Range. Since he has already done so, wouldn't it be foolish for me to go to the Misty Mountain Range?" Left Emissary Jean furrowed his brows in doubt. "Then you mean," Ji Tianqing pointed to the south and said with a smile, "the Blood Sword sect's forces are all concentrated in the Misty Mountain Range. Isn't this the best opportunity for us to attack the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land?" Left Emissary Jean, Blood Dragon Right Emissary, and God Monarch Blood Illusion were all stunned and revealed deep shock. "What? So fast? Young Master Tianqing, please reconsider. Young Master Tianqing, the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land is the headquarters of the Blood Sword sect after all, and its defenses are extremely powerful. Furthermore, I'm certain that the sect master of the Blood Sword sect is definitely in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. When you enter the Misty Mountain Range, he will leave the headquarters and fight with you. The three god monarchs all felt that Ji Tianqing's decision was too reckless and risky. However, Ji Tianqing was stubborn and said with a calm expression, "According to your plan, it will take at least 3 to 5 months to destroy the Blood Sword sect." "That's too slow. I can't wait that long. I'll deal with the Blood Sword sect in half a month. Tonight, we'll head to Shanyang County and attack the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. My target is the sect master of the Blood Sword sect. I'll leave the rest of the small fries to you." God Monarch Blood Illusion and left emissary Jin were hesitant and wanted to dissuade him. Ji Tianqing said with a solemn tone, "I've already made up my mind. You don't need to say any more. If you can't make up your mind, ask the sect master now. If the Blood Blade sect is not willing to cooperate, then our cooperation will end here and I'll go alone." Chapter 2976. Since Ji Tianqing had already said so much, Yi Zichen didn't hesitate. The Blood Illusion God Monarch, Gold Left Emissary, and Blood Dragon Right Emissary all remained silent, not knowing what to say. The three divine monarchs looked at each other and secretly communicated with each other. "Isn't this brat too domineering and overbearing?" The Blood Illusion God Monarch was somewhat dissatisfied. Gold Left Emissary said with a bitter smile, "It's natural for a monstrous genius like him to be arrogant and conceited. After all, he hasn't tasted defeat since he appeared in front of our sect." The Blood Dragon Right Emissary said with a bitter tone, "But we all know that those old foxes of the Blood Sword sect aren't so easy to deal with. We've fought with the Blood Sword sect for 1,000 years and haven't gained much of an advantage. If young Master Tianqing rushes into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground so recklessly, I'm afraid we'll suffer a great loss." Gold Left Emissary hesitated for a moment and said, "But young Master Tianqing's attitude is firm. We can't go against it, or we'll lose this ally. Apart from him, we haven't met such a powerful ally for several hundred years. Don't worry, I'll communicate with him again. If it really doesn't work, I'll ask the sect master to make a decision." The Blood Illusion God Monarch and Blood Dragon Right Emissary both expressed their agreement. Gold Left Emissary bowed to Ji Tianqing and said in a serious tone, "Young Master Tianqing, we've known each other for so long and I have some understanding of your nature. Although I don't know why you're not willing to wait and are in such a hurry to destroy the Blood Sword sect. But I believe that since you've made this decision, you have the corresponding confidence and assurance, right?" Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said in an indifferent tone, "Get to the point." Gold Left Emissary nodded and said in a serious tone, "Since that's the case, I'll be blunt. I believe that you have enough confidence and assurance, but our sect has fought with the Blood Sword sect for nearly 1,000 years and has never been able to gain the upper hand. The schemes of the Blood Sword sect's sect master and vice sect master Yan Hua are not as simple as you and I see. We hope to fight steadily, gradually weakening the Blood Sword sect's strength, and finally kill our way into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground and completely destroy the Blood Sword sect. If you directly charge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land, you'll probably be ambushed by the Blood Sword sect." The sect master's strength was unfathomable. In particular, his sect guardian treasure, the Dark Death Blood Sword that originated from the ancient times, was even more powerful. That blood sword hasn't appeared in the world for 1,000 years. We don't even know to what extent it's been nurtured. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, and said in the same solemn tone, "What you said, this monarch has considered. In fact, this monarch thinks further than you, and considers more factors. However, I've decided to take advantage of this opportunity to charge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land and eradicate the Blood Sword sect. So what if there was an ambush in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land? Even if this was a trap, those experts in the vast mountain range had built a teleportation formation to connect to the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground. When we killed our way into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land, they all rushed back to support us, causing us to be surrounded. Even if the situation is so bad, this monarch is still confident. Leave the Blood Sword sect's sect master and vice sect master Yan Hua to me. The 3 elders and guardians, as well as the experts invited by the Blood Sword sect, will all be dealt with by the Blood Blade sect. Is there a problem? This. Left emissary Jean immediately fell silent, not daring to reply. The shock in his heart set off perilous waves. Yes, Ji Tianqing had thought further and more thoroughly than he had. Before thinking about victory, he had already considered defeat. He had thought of the worst outcome in advance. However, in this situation, Ji Tianqing was still confident that he could kill the 2 strongest experts of the Blood Sword sect. Did the Blood Blade sect have any reason to refuse? After a long while, Left emissary Jean nodded slightly. If you can kill the Blood Sword sect master and Yan Hua, then there's naturally no problem. The sect master will personally take action, along with God Monarch Blood Illusion, the Blood Dragon Right Emissary, and myself, as well as 5 elders and 2 guardians. In addition, our sect can also invite 10 God Monarchs to help. With all the strength of our sect, we can naturally kill the experts of the Blood Sword sect. Ji Tianqing nodded. Since that's the case, what are you hesitating for? Send a message to the sect master now and ask him to make a decision. Left emissary Jean hesitated for a moment before taking a deep breath and nodding. Okay, please wait a moment, young Master Tianqing. After saying that, he took out a special purple jade slip and sent a message. When the message flew into the night sky and disappeared, he frowned and waited for a reply. God Monarch Blood Illusion and the Blood Dragon Right Emissary were also nervous and apprehensive. Left emissary Jean had reported Ji Tianqing's decision and the pros and cons of the matter to the sect master in detail. However, the 3 of them were still worried that the sect master might reject this request and reject Ji Tianqing's suggestion. If that happened, the cooperation between the 2 sides would break down and they would have to part ways. Even if the Blood Blade sect had already obtained victory and weakened the strength of the Blood Sword sect. However, without Ji Tianqing's help, the Blood Blade sect still did not have much confidence. It had only been an hour. However, for Left emissary Jean and the others, it seemed extremely long and torturous. Finally, the Blood Blade sect master replied. A spiritual light flew over from the horizon and landed in Left emissary Jin's hand. God Monarch Blood Illusion and the Blood Dragon Right Emissary's gazes immediately gathered on his hand. Left emissary Jean took a deep breath and held the purple jade slip with both hands to read its contents. The Blood Blade sect master's voice immediately sounded in his mind. It was crisp, decisive and dignified. I am already aware of young Master Tianqing's decision. After careful consideration, I have finally made up my mind to grasp this opportunity and gamble with him. I have fought with the Blood Sword sect for 1,000 years without any results. My accumulated anger cannot be dispelled. If this operation succeeds, please tell young Master Tianqing to let me deal with the Blood Sword sect master. Even if I have to whip his corpse, I will take revenge for that sword strike. The tone of the last sentence was cold and murderous. Obviously, the Blood Blade sect and the Blood Sword sect had a blood feud. There was also a great personal grudge between the Blood Blade sect and the Blood Sword sect master. After Left emissary Jean finished reading the contents of the jade slip, he did not immediately tell Ji Tianqing. Instead, he passed the jade slip to God Monarch Blood Illusion and the Blood Dragon Right Emissary for them to read. After the 2 of them finished reading the jade slip, the 3 of them looked at each other in disbelief. The sect master actually agreed? Perhaps the sect master is wise and knows the pros and cons of this, so he decided to gamble with young Master Tianqing. Moreover, the grudge between the sect master and the Blood Sword sect master has been accumulating for 1,000 years. The sect master's hatred for the Blood Sword sect master is deeply rooted in his bones. As long as he can take revenge, he has to try even if he has to take the risk. Left emissary Jean and the Blood Dragon Right Emissary were even more convinced by God Monarch Blood Illusion's words. They both nodded in agreement. Afterwards, left emissary Jin bowed to Ji Tianqing and said, "Young Master Tianqing, after careful consideration, the sect master has agreed to your proposal and is willing to cooperate with you. From the beginning to the end, we have been the staunchest of allies. We are bound together for good or ill. I hope that this risky operation will be successful." End of chapter. Chapter 2977. The master of the Blood Blade sect agreed to Ji Tianqing's plan. Ji Tianqing naturally did not reject her request. After killing his way into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground, it would be best if he could capture the master of the Blood Blade sect alive and hand her over to be dealt with. Even if he could not do it, he could at least let the master of the Blood Blade sect whip his corpse to vent the hatred that had accumulated for thousands of years. The matter was thus settled. Ji Tianqing followed left emissary Jin and the other two and quietly left the unnamed villa. Under the cover of the night, the four entered Hailin County City and arrived at a certain villa in the west of the city. On the surface, this villa looked like the residence of a wealthy merchant. There were a lot of people in the mansion, and they were rich and overbearing. Everywhere was built in a grand and magnificent manner. Usually, many merchants and caravans would enter and leave this villa. Even at night, there would be an endless stream of visitors. But in reality, this villa was the secret base of the Blood Blade sect and also the branch of the Hailin County. Ji Tianqing, left emissary Jin and the other two quietly entered the underground passage under the lead of the guard commander. Then, they stepped into an underground hall. The hall was heavily guarded and protected by a powerful array to prevent outsiders from spying on them. In the center of the hall was a high platform with a radius of 300 meters. It was made of dozens of precious gems and special spatial god stones. Densely packed array patterns were carved on it. Without a doubt, this was a teleportation array. The guard commander and the deacon of the branch were busy adding spatial god stones to activate the teleportation array. Ji Tianqing and the other three stood in the hall and waited. Taking advantage of this opportunity, left emissary Jin introduced to Ji Tianqing, "This teleportation array is very expensive to build. The cost of maintenance and use is also very high. Although our sect has branches in 18 counties, only 9 of them are equipped with teleportation arrays. The one in Hailin County is the northernmost one. In a while, we will use this teleportation array to enter Shanyang County in the south. It will save us at least 8 days." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "The reason why teleportation arrays are so expensive is because spatial god stones are very rare. In fact, experts who had reached the Divine King realm did not even need a teleportation array to travel. This is because Divine King experts' divine power is strong enough to make use of spatial laws to teleport. Even a first-degree Divine King can teleport up to 100 million miles in one go. Actually, this was only for ordinary Divine Kings. He had already mastered spatial laws and could teleport up to 200,000 miles in one go. When he reached the 9th level Divine Lord realm, he could teleport up to 1,000,000 miles. If he reached the Divine King realm, he would be able to teleport up to 100 million miles in. After hearing what he said, left emissary Jin, Blood Dragon right emissary and Sir God Blood Illusion smiled bitterly. Left emissary Jin shook his head. Divine King said Divine King to teleport. But Divine King experts. Not to mention the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, even in the entire Great Yan Empire, there hadn't been a God King expert for close to 1,000 years. I estimate that only the entire Northern Heaven region will give birth to 2 or 3 Divine Kings. Ji Tianqing listened with a calm expression and didn't say anything. According to the situation 1,000 years ago, this was indeed the case. A region only had 2 or 3 Divine Kings. He didn't know what boundless heaven mainland looked like now. Very soon, an hour passed. The teleportation array was fully activated. The high platform lit up with rainbow divine light and gave out a strong fluctuation of divine power. In the middle of the high platform, there was a 30 feet tall door of blazing white light. It was dark inside the door. "Let's go." Divine King of the Divine King Blood Illusion led the way to the door of light. Left Emissary Jin, Divine King of the Divine King, and Ji Tianqing followed closely behind. Swoosh! Swoosh swoosh swoosh! The four of them stepped into the door of light one after another and were swallowed by the darkness. After a while, the teleportation door of light dissipated slowly. The divine light on the high platform also disappeared gradually. Ji Tianqing only felt darkness in front of his eyes, and then it became bright. When he opened his eyes and could see his surroundings clearly, he was already at another location. Swoosh! Swoosh! He looked around and realized he was standing on a stone platform that was 100 feet tall. Divine King of the Divine King Blood Illusion, Divine King of the Divine King Blood Illusion, and Left Emissary Jin were beside him. The high platform with a radius of 100 feet was lit up with divine light. There were dozens of guards around it. At first glance, it was no different from the Hailin County branch. The teleportation array and the guards' attire were all the same. But in fact, this was the Shanyang County branch. A guard commander came forward and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Deputy Sect Leader, Left Emissary Jin, and Divine King of the Divine King." Left Emissary Jin pointed at Ji Tianqing and said, "This is young Master Tianqing." The guard commander was stunned. He quickly bowed and said, "Greetings, young Master Tianqing." Ji Tianqing didn't mind. He waved his hand and asked him to leave. Then, the four of them walked out of the underground hall and returned to the manor above ground. The Shanyang County branch was also a manor. But it wasn't in Shanyang County. It was at the peak of a towering mountain tens of thousands of miles away from the city. Half of the mountain was shrouded in clouds and mist. The manor seemed to be in a sea of clouds, and the environment was quiet and elegant. Left Emissary Jin and the others were very familiar with this. After settling Ji Tianqing in a courtyard, they went to carry out their mission. Although Ji Tianqing wanted to launch a surprise attack on the Dragon Blood Forbidden Grounds and end the battle at lightning speed. However, they couldn't be reckless. Left Emissary Jin and the other two still needed to make some preparations. At the very least, he had to gather a large number of elite experts in advance. The Left Emissary Jin and the Blood Dragon Right Emissary were the best at mobilizing people, so it was fine to leave it to them. Ji Tianqing didn't need to care about anything. He only needed to meditate in the courtyard. 2 whole days passed. Inside the Shanyang County branch, the atmosphere was heavy and solemn. Every once in a while, a group of elite experts would arrive at the branch through the teleportation array. These elite experts were the backbone of the Blood Blade sect. There were elite disciples of the Blood Blade sect as well as experts from their vassal forces. In these 2 days, more than 30 groups of experts and experts had gathered at the Shanyang County branch through the teleportation array. According to Left Emissary Jin's calculations, more than 800 elite experts and 18 god lords had been gathered in the past 2 days. Of course, the elders and guardians of the Bloodblade sect, as well as the 200 or so disciples, did not come. They would follow the sect master of the Bloodblade sect and head to the Dragon Blood Forbidden Grounds. Everyone would only gather when the final battle began. At dawn on the 3rd day, the people of the Bloodblade sect started to gather. More than 800 people lined up neatly on the square in the middle of the manor. These 800 experts were all wearing standard black armor with the symbol of the Bloodblade embroidered on their chests. They were divided into 18 teams led by 18 god lords. They drove the divine ships toward the Dragon Blood Forbidden Grounds. Shui Huan, Blood Dragon, Left Emissary Jin and Ji Tianqing moved together. They also took a monarch-grade divine ship and left the Shanyang County branch. When the sky just brightened, 19 divine warships of various shapes and sizes flew into the sky one after another, heading toward the southeast. Today was the day to enter the Dragon Blood Forbidden Grounds and fight to the death. P.S. Readers, I'm He Wuhan. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, no ads and many reading modes. Please follow, book friends, quickly follow. Chapter 2978. The Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground was 800,000 miles away from the Shanyang County branch. With the speed of 19 divine ships, they could arrive in 4 hours. This distance was relatively close. Ji Tianqing could not help but wonder if the Blood Blade sect master had set up the Shanyang County branch nearby because he wanted to reach the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground as quickly as possible. On the way to the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground. Within the dark red divine ship, Ji Tianqing, left emissary Jin, and Blood Illusion God Lord sat in a secret room, meditating. Blood Dragon Right emissary was focused on steering the divine ship while checking the surroundings. With nothing to do, Ji Tianqing asked left emissary Jin, "What is the enmity between your sect master and the Blood Sword sect master? Why does the Blood Blade sect master hate the Blood Sword sect master so much that he wants to vent his anger by whipping his corpse?" Left emissary Jin had a difficult expression as he stammered, "Young Master Tianqing, this. I'm not too sure." It was not that he did not know, but that he did not dare to speak casually. Blood Illusion God Lord said calmly, "Now that things have come to this, the final battle is about to be decided. Young Master Tianqing is with us, so what else can't you say?" Left emissary Jin only spoke after getting the vice sect master's approval. "Young Master Tianqing, the sect master and the Blood Sword sect master were actually brother and sister 2,000 years ago. Senior brother and junior sister." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and was immediately interested. He asked, "What's going on? Tell me about it." Left emissary Jin said calmly, 2,000 years ago, in the southern celestial beast empire, there was a hermit called Lin Wufa, known as Divine Lord Wufa. His life was legendary. He had a like-minded partner and they traveled the world hand in hand, exploring various forbidden grounds and ruins. The couple did not like power, but they were obsessed with studying ancient divine Tao techniques and were determined to travel the entire continent. They were in love for many years, but they did not have a child, so they adopted a celestial beast boy and named him Lin Shan. Lin Shan was extremely talented and had high comprehension, so he learned the true teachings of Divine Lord Wufa. Decades later, his wife gave birth to a girl named Lin Shui. Shui Lin has inherited the wisdom and beauty of the immortal couple. She is naturally lively, kind, enthusiastic and cheerful. Her cultivation aptitude and talent are even more monstrous than Lin Shan's. At this point, Ji Tianqing vaguely guessed the answer. He nodded and said, "In that case, your sect master is Lin Shui, and Lin Shan is the master of the Bloodsword sect?" Left emissary Jin nodded and continued, "Originally, the Divine Emperor and his wife loved each other very much. Their disciple and daughter were both very intelligent and talented. Their family of 4 traveled the world, and it could be said that their happiness was complete. However, during one of their adventures, they fell into a desperate situation, and there was no chance of survival. In order to save Lin Shan and Lin Shui, the wife of the immortal monarch sacrificed herself and finally died. Since then, the powerless divine monarch had suffered a heavy blow and was disheartened. Therefore, he ended his adventuring career and brought Lin Shan and Lin Shui to live in seclusion at the border of the celestial beast empire. During those hundreds of years, the grief of not being able to become a divine monarch could not be erased. Thus, he wholeheartedly taught his disciples and daughter. He had a blood sword and the wife of the immortal monarch had a demon knife. They were both top-grade divine weapons passed down from ancient times. The powerless divine monarch gave the blood sword to Lin Shan and imparted him all kinds of secret arts and sword arts. He then passed the demon knife to Lin Shui and taught her all kinds of divine arts. When he heard this, Ji Tianqing tried to ask, so this is the origin of the Bloodsword sect and the Bloodblade sect? But what happened after that? Was the powerless divine monarch killed? Left emissary Jean took a deep look at him and nodded solemnly, that's right. 1,000 years ago, during the War of the Gods, the entire boundless heaven continent fell into chaos. At that time, the powerless divine monarch had already reached the 8th stage realm. Lin Shan had also reached the 7th stage realm, becoming an upper divine monarch. Even the youngest Lin Shui had also reached the 6th stage realm. When the war struck, the Sky Demon Empire was embroiled in endless chaos. The powerless divine monarch was also implicated. He was severely injured and could only escape with Lin Shan and Lin Shui. However, Lin Shan had wild ambitions and secretly colluded with a strong enemy. Not only did he kill the powerless divine monarch and snatch his life's ultimate arts and divine arts, he even pushed the blame onto the strong enemy and pretended to take revenge for his master. He even wanted to marry Lin Shui as his wife. Rather than cultivating the dragon sword phoenix blade technique. After all, the powerless divine monarch and his wife both wielded the blood sword and demon knife. The two of them were in perfect harmony and had great chemistry. If the powerless divine monarch's wife did not fall, they would have great hopes of breaking through to the divine king realm. Lin Shan did this because he wanted the demon knife and the dragon sword phoenix blade technique. However, the heavens were clear. Lin Shui was deceived for a while, but she still discovered Lin Shan's evil deeds. The two of them broke off and had a great battle. In that battle, Lin Shui was no match for the blood sword Lin Shan. Not only was her godhead damaged, her heart was also pierced. Lin Shui used a secret art, and after luckily escaping, she concealed her identity for hundreds of years. 100 years later, she finally recovered from her injuries and broke through to the 7th stage realm. When she went to find Lin Shan to take revenge, she discovered that Lin Shan had already left the Sky Demon Empire and disappeared without a trace. After many inquiries and searches, Lin Shui finally found out that Lin Shan had escaped to the Great Yan Empire and established his own sect in the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, establishing the Blood Sword sect. Hence, she chased him to the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom to seek revenge on Lin Shan. But unfortunately, she was alone and weak. She failed several times to assassinate Lin Shan and even fell into a dangerous situation herself. Later on, she made two good friends, and under the persuasion of her good friends, she established the Bloodblade sect. Speaking to this point, left emissary Jin's tone turned gloomy and was filled with indignation. Ji Tianxing felt the same way as he nodded, that Blood Sword sect's master Lin Shan is indeed sinister and despicable, unscrupulous. No wonder your sect master has such a deep blood feud with him and even whipped his corpse to vent his anger. The enmity of killing one's father is absolutely irreconcilable. That's right, your sect master's two best friends should be the both of you, right? Left emissary Jean nodded and explained, the reason why Shui Huan does not have a physical body and has always appeared as an illusion is not only because his cultivation technique is special. Most importantly, Shui Huan helped the sect master block Lin Shan's blood sword secret technique back then, and his divine body was destroyed by the blood sword. Ji Tianxing finally understood and could not help but feel deep veneration. The friendship between the three of you is not easy to come by. Fortunately, the two of you helped and supported him. Otherwise, your sect master would not have been able to last until today. Shui Huan said in a gloomy voice, our original intention in establishing the Bloodblade sect was to kill the Blood Sword sect's master and avenge him. As long as we can kill the Blood Sword sect's master Lin Shan, we will not hesitate even if we have to bury the entire Bloodblade sect. However, I have to remind you, young Master Tianxing, that blood sword is a remnant of the old Divine Lord. It is a supreme divine weapon at the monarch level and has unbelievable effects. After 1,000 years of nurturing, Lin Shan has already raised the power of the blood sword to another level. I reckon that apart from the sect master's demon blade, no other divine weapon can resist it. Young Master Tianxing, you have to be wary of that blood sword. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 2979. Ji Tianqing finally understood after hearing the story of the Blood Blade Sect Master and the Blood Sword Sect Master. It was no wonder that the Blood Blade Sect Master agreed after careful consideration when his suggestion was so radical. This was because the Blood Blade Sect Master wanted revenge too much. It was no wonder that the other 5 sects would form cliques and rely on the royal family. Only the Blood Blade sect remained unrecruited, ranking last among the 5. This was because the other sects were ambitious. They wanted to fight for power and status and pass down their legacies. The Blood Blade sect was founded for revenge. Everything made sense now. The Blood Blade sect master is actually a woman, and a woman with a hard life. Ji Tianqing sighed silently. But on second thought, wasn't it because the other sects were ambitious while the Blood Blade sect only wanted revenge? Was that why he had formed an alliance with the Blood Blade sect and became their ally? In that case, it could be said that it was the will of the heavens. His unintentional action had actually helped the Blood Blade sect greatly. Unknowingly, for hours had passed. The 19 divine warships crossed mountains and rivers and were about to reach the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land when they slowed down. Young Master Tianqing, the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land is up ahead. We've arrived, Left Envoy Jin reminded. Ji Tianqing finished his meditation and released his divine sense to explore the outside. He saw a region shrouded in dark red mist in the mountains and rivers 5,000 kilometers away. The surrounding area was filled with green mountains and clear waters. Only the area within a radius of 5,000 kilometers was dyed a dark red color by blood. Ji Tianqing could sense a special aura permeating that region. There was an invisible force field. Left Envoy Jin took the initiative to introduce, the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land originated several thousand years ago. Legend has it that a divine dragon fell here, slain by a god king. After the divine dragon died, its flesh and blood returned to the world, dyeing that region red with blood. After several thousand years, the ground is still dark red and filled with a powerful dragon's aura. This place once attracted countless powerful monsters and divine beasts, who stayed here all year round to absorb the dragon's aura. The Blood Sword Sect Master chose to establish his sect here because he wanted to absorb the dragon's aura to nurture his blood sword and increase his strength. Ji Tianqing nodded and asked, "What's the situation in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land now? Do you have a plan of attack?" The Blood Illusion God Monarch took the initiative to answer, "Our sect has placed a few spies in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground. Not long ago, the spies reported that the defenses in the forbidden area were empty. Most of the elites and main forces of the Blood Sword sect were concentrated in the vast mountain range. Currently, there were only 500 guards, over 3,000 odd-job workers, and over 100 elite disciples in the forbidden area. Other than that, the Blood Sword sect's sect master has been guarding the sacred ground and hasn't shown himself." After introducing the situation of the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land, he sneered coldly and said, "Young Master Tianqing's prediction is very accurate. The Dragon Blood Forbidden Land is empty of power, and it is the best time for us to take revenge." The sect master, several elders, and consecrators were rushing over with the elite disciples of the sect. Based on their speed, we should be able to meet up in 4 hours at most. The sect master's intention is to wait for our army to gather before we charge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land together. They had to flatten the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land with the momentum of a thunderbolt. We must not give the Blood Sword sect a chance to catch their breaths and prevent any unexpected changes from happening. Ji Tianqing thought for a while and shook his head. The sect master's thoughts coincide with mine. But since we have already arrived, it is not good to wait any longer. Otherwise, the Blood Sword sect will quickly notice and defend with all their strength. I have decided to charge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land before the Blood Sword sect can react. By the time the sect master arrives, we will have already cut off the wings of the blood sword sect and should be attacking the sacred mountain. This. The blood illusion god monarch hesitated and couldn't make up his mind. Left emissary Jin frowned and thought for a while before saying, "Young Master Tianqing, please be patient. I will first send a message to the sect master to ask for instructions." Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. Left emissary Jin hurriedly took out a jade slip to ask for the Blood Blade sect master's opinion. In less than 100 breaths, he received a reply from the Blood Blade sect master. There was only one sentence in the jade slip, but it was extremely heavy. "Before this seed arrives, we will follow young Master Tianqing's orders." Left emissary Jin was rather shocked and handed the jade slip to the blood illusion god monarch and the blood dragon sect master. After reading it, the two of them revealed looks of disbelief. They simply couldn't believe that the sect master had never seen Ji Tianqing before, but trusted him so much. Could it be that the sect master and young Master Tianqing were of the same mind, and their thoughts and personalities were very similar? Left emissary Jin and the other two immediately cupped their hands and bowed to Ji Tianqing, saying, "As per the sect master's orders, before she arrives, we will follow young master's orders." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said in a solemn tone, "Very good. The blood illusion god monarch and the right emissary will follow me into the dragon blood forbidden land and try to destroy the defensive formation. Left emissary Jin will stay here and command the 18 divine ships to wait for our signal. After we break through the dragon blood forbidden land's defenses and send you a signal, we will launch a large-scale attack." Left emissary Jin felt slightly comforted and hurriedly nodded, saying, "As per the young master's orders. This method is more reliable. I was worried that you would lead everyone to attack directly." Ji Tianqing couldn't be bothered with him, but the blood illusion god monarch coughed and reminded him, "Young master's strategy and wisdom are at the same level as the sect master's. It's not something you can understand or guess." Left emissary Jin smiled embarrassedly, saying, "Young master, please don't blame me. Let's not waste time. It's time to move." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and flew out of the divine ship first. The two divine monarchs, Blood Illusion and Blood Dragon, hurriedly followed him out of the divine ship. Ji Tianqing used the Armillary Heaven secret technique and merged with the world, hiding his tracks and aura. Blood Illusion and Blood Dragon also used their concealment techniques and followed him silently, heading straight for the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. The reason why Ji Tianqing chose them to follow him was because they were better at concealment and wouldn't be discovered by the people of the Blood Sword sect. Soon, the three of them crossed thousands of miles and stepped into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. As soon as they entered the dark red blood ground, an invisible dragon aura force field enveloped the three of them like a formation. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, was completely unaffected. Blood Illusion and Blood Dragon's divine power circulation slowed down slightly, and their auras weakened by 30%. This was the suppression of the divine dragon's might, and no one could avoid it. After all, the divine dragon bloodline was naturally noble. Unless one was like Ji Tianqing, who possessed the bloodline of a peak god king, only then would one be able to ignore the might of a divine dragon. After walking 1,000 feet into the forbidden land, Ji Tianqing stopped flying. He used his God's Eye mystic technique and immediately saw that there was an invisible defensive formation in front of him. This was the outermost layer of the Dragon Blood Forbidden Grounds, the first layer of the Great Sect Protection Formation. The dark red light shield with a radius of 10,000 miles was a monarch-grade high-grade divine formation. Its defensive power was extremely strong. Ji Tianqing's eyes turned golden as he stared at the light barrier without blinking. He carefully observed it for a quarter of an hour. Finally, he was able to see through the structure of the formation, as well as the method of setting it up. He also found the point of breaking it. Without any hesitation, he used his divine ability to break the formation. End of chapter. Update soonest, the new 81st Chinese network, A.M. Chapter 2980. Ji Tianqing stood invisible in the sky, concentrating on casting a spell to break the formation. Sir God Xuehuan and Sir God Xuelong were guarding him on both sides. Luckily, this was the outermost circle of the dragon blood forbidden ground and there weren't many patrolling guards. Plus, no one had directly attacked the dragon blood forbidden ground since the Blood Sword sect was founded 1,000 years ago. Those guards were already careless and wouldn't be too vigilant when patrolling. In just an hour, Ji Tianqing had cracked the grand protective formation. Swish! A giant crack appeared on the invisible dark red light shield and quickly spread in all directions. After a while, the crack expanded to 10 miles. Besides, the array also stopped working and wouldn't automatically repair the crack. Ji Tianqing took Xuehuan and Divine Lord Blood Dragon through the crack and continued to fly into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground. After flying another 3,000 miles, they were blocked by the second invisible array. This was a rainbow-colored light barrier that blotted out the sky. It maintained an invisible state, and its defensive power was even stronger. Not only was this array strong, but it could also detect divine power waves and attack invaders. Ji Tianqing observed the formation even more cautiously, and only after a full 15 minutes did he begin to crack it. This time, it took more time to break it. It took almost 2 hours. The array stopped working and a giant crack appeared and spread in all directions. It only calmed down after the crack expanded to 20 miles. Ji Tianqing and the other two continued to go deeper. When they arrived at the heart of the Dragon Blood Forbidden Grounds and saw the dark red lone peak, they were blocked by the third sect protecting Grand Formation. This great crimson blood formation with a radius of 1,000 miles was the last great protective formation. It wasn't invisible, it had always been there, flashing dark red light and surrounded by red flames. After all, this was the core area of the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground and most of the guards were gathered here. At least 200 guards in blood-red armor were patrolling the ground and the sky with sabers, swords, and bows in their hands. The atmosphere became very tense. The two divine lords, Xuehuan and Xuelong, were sweating. Ji Tianqing wasn't worried. He said, "What are you worried about? In any case, it was the last protective formation. As long as it could be broken, it didn't matter even if it was discovered. Once this monarch breaks this formation, send out the signal to attack." Xuehuan and Sir God Blood Dragon were relieved. They replied with a voice transmission. This time, Ji Tianqing was even more careful when cracking the formation. He racked his brains and used his Deity King level experience in array formations. After 3 attempts, he finally succeeded. Even so, he still spent an entire hour. When the formation was broken, the crimson light shield within a radius of 1,000 miles burst into cracking noises and burst into a blood-red light that soared into the sky. Dozens of huge cracks quickly spread across the light barrier. A large cluster of bloody light and flames quickly collapsed and dissipated. Such a huge commotion immediately alerted the surrounding guards. Many of the guards were horrified and sent out alarms, asking for help from the disciples on the holy mountain. More than 100 guards rushed over from all directions to the place where the gap had appeared. This area was where Ji Tianqing and the other two were hiding. Xuehuan and Sir God Blood Dragon remembered his instructions and sent out the signal to attack without hesitation. Boom! Crack! 2 dazzling beams of blood-red light soared into the sky like divine dragons and exploded with a loud bang. At the same time, Ji Tianqing flew out as fast as lightning and pounced on the nearest group of guards. There were a total of 36 crimson armor guards. They all held swords, spears, swords, and halberds. They rushed over with murderous intent and roared. Ji Tianqing raised his right palm expressionlessly and slapped out a mountain-sized golden dragon claw. Boom! The next moment, there was a deafening sound. The 36 crimson armor guards were smashed into pieces by the golden dragon claw. Their flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Instant kill. They were only LV-4 or LV-5 Heavenly God Realm Guards. Even if there were 36 of them, they could only be killed by Ji Tianqing with one slap. Then, Ji Tianqing turned around and flew to the other side. He crossed 100 miles in one step and punched another group of Crimson Armor Guards. Boom! Crack! More than 20 Crimson Armor Guards were smashed into meat paste by the Draconic Elephant Divine Fist. Blood splattered everywhere. Sir God Blood Dragon and Sir God Blood Huan witnessed this scene with their own eyes. Seeing Ji Tianqing's prowess, the two of them were excited and surprised. Young Master Tianqing is indeed our sect's lucky star. The 3 layers of the sect protection array of the Blood Sword sect are impregnable. No one can break through them. Today, he managed to break through all of them in 4 hours. This is a miracle. His strength is unfathomable. His methods are ruthless and decisive. Even his attainments in the array Dao are so high. Who is young Master Tianqing? While they were shocked, Sir God Blood Dragon and Sir God Blood Huan drew their swords and charged at the nearby guards. Kill! Kill all the bastards of the Blood Sword sect. The 2 Sir God Blood Dragon roared as they used their divine skills and massacred group after group of guards. In a short while, the 200 or so Crimson Armor Guards were slaughtered by the 3 of them. Not a single corpse was left intact. However, there were still more than 100 guards who rushed over fearlessly. They no longer fought individually. Instead, they gathered together and formed the Crimson Sword 8 Gates battle formation. This battle formation contained the true intent of the 8 Gates extreme weapons. It could gather the power of 160 guards and use divine skills that were comparable to a Sir God's. After the battle formation was activated, the 100 or so guards moved in unison. They seemed to have a tacit understanding. Dazzling crimson sword lights that were more than 100 feet long slashed over one after another. Sir God Blood Dragon and Sir God Blood Dragon had solemn expressions as they blocked and dealt with the attack seriously. However, Ji Tianqing turned a blind eye to it. He didn't put this battle formation in his eyes at all. He roared in a domineering manner and charged towards the battle formation with an indomitable will. He clenched his hands in the air and formed 2 golden dragon claws that were as big as mountains. He then smashed down with an unstoppable force. Boom! A loud sound, as if stars had collided, exploded in the sky. The 2 golden dragon claws fell like meteors and hit the battle formation. Immediately, the Crimson Sword 8 Gates battle formation was smashed into pieces. The crimson swords in the sky were smashed into pieces and the 100 or so guards were also smashed into meat paste. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere. A 100-mile deep pit was formed on the ground and spiderweb-like cracks appeared around it. Sir God Blood Dragon and Sir God Blood Dragon could also do such a powerful destructive force. However, the 2 of them didn't have Ji Tianqing's ability to see through the flaws of the Crimson Sword 8 Gates battle formation and destroy its vital points in an overbearing manner. To a Sir God, strength and cultivation were important. However, battle experience, insight and knowledge were more important. In the blink of an eye, the 100 or so Crimson Armor Guards were all killed by Ji Tianqing. There were no more obstacles in front of him. Ji Tianqing charged towards the sacred mountain with murderous intent. At the same time, 10,000 miles away, Left Emissary Jean received the signal and led 18 battleships to the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. Translator, Timothy_editor, Globeglotter. Chapter 2981. The 18 divine ships formed a formation and charged into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground. Every divine ship opened their divine cannons, the muzzles glowing with divine light. The moment they discovered the guards and disciples of the Blood Sword sect, the 18 divine ships would unleash a barrage of attacks and wash the land with blood. Under such circumstances, only Divine Lord experts would be spared. No matter how many celestial god guards and experts there were, they would all be turned to dust. However, the 18 divine ships did not encounter any resistance from the Blood Sword sect. Everyone could only see the devastated land, which was filled with ravines and cracks. What was even more surprising was that the Blood Sword sect originally had 3 protective arrays. Each one was more sophisticated than the last and had a powerful defense. However, the divine ships did not encounter any resistance as they advanced. The 3 sect protecting great formations were all broken. They all stopped operating, and a huge gap appeared. Left Emissary Jean, the 18 divine lords, and the other experts were all shocked. Everyone found it hard to believe that Ji Tianqing had actually broken through 3 sect protecting grand arrays in a short span of 4 hours. This was an unbelievable miracle. Soon, the 18 divine ships reached the core region of the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground and arrived near the sacred mountain. The divine ship spread out and stopped in the sky, surrounding the lone sacred mountain. Whoosh! 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 Left Emissary Jean and the 18 divine lords left the divine ships and stood in the sky. They all took out their weapons and glared at the sacred mountain. More than 800 elite experts remained in the divine ships and waited for orders. Everyone saw Ji Tianqing, Xue Huan, and Xue Long looking down at the peak of the sacred mountain with murderous intent. Ji Tianqing stood at the front, closest to the sacred mountain. With a voice as loud as a bell, he shouted, "Lin Shan, come out and die." His thunderous voice reverberated through the sacred mountain, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt. On the wide and flat peak of the sacred mountain, there were only 100 guards in blood-red armor gathered in the plaza. They all gripped their weapons and stood in a defensive formation, warily glaring at Ji Tianqing's group. Hearing Ji Tianqing's shouts and provocations, many of the guards showed indignation, but no one dared to come out and fight. Just a moment ago, they had witnessed Ji Tianqing display his invincible might and easily kill over 100 guards. They had all been scared out of their wits and fled back to the peak of the holy mountain. How could they still have the slightest bit of fighting spirit? Now, they could only hope that the sect master of the Blood Sword sect would show himself and kill the intruders. Unfortunately, it had already happened for a quarter of an hour. 80% of the 500 guards were killed, leaving only 100 or so. The enemy fleet was also closing in on the sacred mountain and was about to reach the peak. Even now, the sect master of the Blood Sword sect still hadn't appeared. Even the elders and consecrators of the sect did not show up. This caused the surviving guards to feel extremely dejected and hopeless. Right at this moment, angry shouts suddenly came from the 2 great halls on the mountain peak. The guards turned their heads to look and saw 2 groups of disciples wearing red robes and holding swords rushing to the square as fast as lightning. There were nearly 100 people in the 2 groups, all of them elite disciples of the Blood Sword sect. Their strength had all reached the 6th level of the celestial god realm or above. The quite a few disciples leading the group were all half-step divine lord realms. Bastards of the Blood Blade sect, you dare barge into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land and offend the might of our sect? You're seeking your own deaths. Bastards of the Blood Blade sect, I'll make sure you die without a grave today. The half-step divine lord disciples stood at the front of the group, facing off against the people of the Blood Blade sect. They roared with surging killing intent, their faces filled with fighting spirit. There was not the slightest bit of fear. Left Emissary Jean coldly looked at them and barked, "Where's Lin Shan? Tell him to come out and die." Among the strongest disciples, the leader was a tall and sturdy man with a square face and a full beard on his chin. He held a heavy black iron sword with both hands and looked at Left Emissary Jean arrogantly. He replied, "You despicable bastards don't have the right to see our sect master." Left Emissary Jean frowned and sneered, "Your sect master is probably not in the sect right now. He's still in the distant mountains, right?" The moment he said that, the people of the Blood Blade sect all sneered and mocked him. The chief disciple's expression immediately changed. The elite disciples also had ugly expressions and retorted. However, their retorts were rather weak. They clearly lacked confidence. This made the people of the Blood Blade sect even more certain that the sect master of the Blood Sword sect was not in the sect, but in the mountains. In terms of scheming, the Blood Blade sect was better. The Blood Sword sect was already in an extremely passive position. However, the chief disciple was unwilling to yield. He roared, "You're the left emissary of the Blood Blade sect and a divine lord expert who has been famous for many years. Don't you feel ashamed bullying us juniors? If the Blood Blade sect has any backbone, send your disciples to fight. If I don't beat your young disciples to the ground, I'll wring my own head off." This chief disciple was extremely confident and his tone was extremely domineering. The nearly 100 disciples of the Blood Sword sect all felt elated. They looked at the people of the Blood Blade sect with provocative expressions. As for the young disciples of the Blood Blade sect, they were all enraged. All of them rubbed their fists, wanting nothing more than to draw their blades and fight. Even Xue Huan, Xue Long, and left emissary Jin were hesitant. It was true that they were all veteran divine lords who had been famous for many years. If they personally fought against the disciples of the Blood Sword sect, it would be beneath their dignity. It would also be tantamount to admitting that the disciples of the Blood Blade sect were inferior to the disciples of the Blood Sword sect. However, if they really sent their disciples to fight against the disciples of the Blood Sword sect, it would take a lot of time. Just as the three of them were hesitating, Ji Tianqing suddenly sneered disdainfully. "Little brat, do you think we're here to visit the Blood Sword sect and exchange pointers with you? This lord has come to exterminate the Blood Sword sect." As he sneered, he formed a hand seal with his right hand and sent out a dazzling golden sword light at the chief disciple. The sword light shot out like lightning. The chief disciple was enveloped by the sword intent, and his body stiffened in place. He was unable to dodge or run. Boom! With a muffled explosion, the half-step divine lord chief disciple was struck by the dazzling golden sword light and exploded into a rain of blood. He had been instantly killed. Not only had his body been reduced to a rain of blood, but his godhead had also been reduced to dust. A few disciples who were close to him had their heads and faces splashed with blood. They were so stunned that they forgot to wipe the blood off their faces. Their eyes were red with grief and indignation as they glared at Ji Tianqing. You vicious bastard! As a divine lord, you actually dared to attack a junior disciple. You have no shame. You executioner! Our sect will not live under the same sky as you." The disciples of the Blood Sword sect were enraged. They glared at Ji Tianqing with murderous intent as they roared and cursed. Ji Tianqing expressionlessly said, "Childish." He once more waved his palms, sending out swordlight that blotted out the sky. End of this chapter. Chapter 2982. Whoosh! 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 The dazzling golden swordlight that covered the sky fell from the sky like a rain of arrows. At least 50 Blood Sword sect disciples were enveloped by the dazzling golden sword lights. These people were immediately filled with horror. Their faces turned pale as they scattered in all directions in fear. Even the 40 or so nearby disciples that weren't enveloped by the sword lights subconsciously retreated. Bam! 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 Of the 50 or so Blood Sword sect disciples, there were a few lucky ones who managed to escape the range of the sword light and keep their lives. However, the remaining 50 disciples were all killed by the sword lights. Blood and flesh splattered as sword lights flashed. After the dust and the rain of blood dispersed, a deep pit could be seen on the ground. Many bones, weapons, and armor fragments were scattered in the pit. There were also some fragments of godheads. The 50 disciples that were lucky enough to survive were all intimidated by Ji Tianqing's might and were both furious and terrified. They didn't dare to gather together, so they scattered and pointed at Ji Tianqing, left emissary Jin, and the others as they cursed. "You bastards who deserve to die by 1,000 cuts, you will all die a horrible death. Even if we are killed today, we will never submit. We were born as members of the Blood Sword sect and we will die as ghosts of the Blood Sword sect. We will never be defeated. Bastards of the Blood Blade sect, the sect master will definitely avenge us. It won't be long before the sect master cuts you to pieces and returns today's hatred tenfold." These disciples knew that they would definitely die today. Not to mention the many divine lords and disciples of the Blood Blade sect, just Ji Tianqing alone could easily kill them all. All they could do was straighten their backs and straighten their chests. Even if they were killed on the spot, they would die with dignity and not tarnish the reputation of the Blood Sword sect. Of course, if possible, they would also like to stall for time. At the same time, Shui Huan, Shui Long, and left emissary Jin waved their hands and gave the order to attack. "What are you waiting for? Open fire. The sect master of the Blood Sword sect isn't here. Let's use this opportunity to destroy the Blood Sword sect. Destroy their sacred mountain and the dragon blood forbidden land." The three of them roared furiously. The 18 divine warships obeyed the order and blasted out divine cannons and fiery light pillars that blotted out the sky. Boom boom boom. At least 500 beams of dazzling multicolored divine light and dark red flames streaked across the sky and blasted towards the mountain peak. The mountain peaks within a radius of dozens of miles were covered by the divine cannons. If this batch of divine cannons were to land, the mountain peak would be torn apart. Many palaces and buildings would also be razed to the ground. As for the 50 disciples and 100 blood-armored guards, there was no way they would be spared either. He would definitely be crushed to pieces and turned into ashes. The cannons and divine light that blotted out the sky had already enveloped the peak of the mountain. In the next moment, the mountain peak would be razed to the ground. At this critical moment, the sound of a sword piercing through gold and splitting stone suddenly erupted from the Blood Kenshin Hall in the middle of the mountain peak. Clang! The crisp but unpleasant sword chime seemed to tear the sky and space apart. In the blink of an eye, a huge blood-red sword that was thousands of feet tall flew out of the temple and into the sky. Hum! The blood-red sword radiated a boundless bloody light that instantly enveloped the entire mountain. The dozens of palaces and buildings on the mountain peak, the 50 disciples, and the 100 guards were all enveloped by the bloody light. The bloody light was like a canopy or an inverted bowl that protected the mountain peak. Boom 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 boom. More than 500 cannons and light pillars viciously blasted the bloody canopy, creating thunderous booms that shook the heavens. Countless people were dizzy from the loud booms. The weaker disciples were even shaken to the point of bleeding from their ears. The entire mountain shook violently, and countless rocks and stones collapsed halfway up the mountain. The light pillars and cannons that filled the sky all collapsed, splashing out fragments of divine light that blotted out the sky. The bloody canopy, however, was undamaged. It only trembled a few dozen times before calming down. On the mountain peak plaza, many guards and disciples looked up at the bloody canopy with incredulous expressions. After a moment of daze, they came back to their senses and cheered excitedly. "We're not dead. We're saved. Ha ha ha, the sacred sword saved us. It must be the sect master. The sect master is back. After 1,000 years, the sacred sword has finally appeared. The mighty sect master." The disciples and guards of the Blood Sword sect all knew that the sacred mountain contained a bloody sacred sword, the #1 divine artifact of the sect. Ever since the Blood Sword sect had been established, it had never encountered a calamity or great calamity. Thus, the mysterious bloody sword had never appeared before. In their words, the Blood Sword sect had yet to encounter a powerful enemy worthy of using the sacred sword. But today, at the moment of life and death for the Blood Sword sect, the mysterious bloody sword had finally appeared. How could the disciples and guards of the Blood Sword sect not be wild with joy? Ong! The bloody canopy was still there, and the 1,000-zhang-tall blood-red sword floated at the top of the canopy, flickering with a blazing bloody light. Ji Tianqing, left emissary Jin, and all the members of the Blood Blade sect looked up at the bloody sword with complicated expressions. Ji Tianqing's eyes were sharp as he carefully observed the sword. He really wanted to know what was so special about the bloody sword that God Monarch Blood Illusion was so afraid of. On the other hand, God Monarch Blood Illusion, left emissary Jin, and the others revealed deep fear and anxiety. After all, it was a Supreme Monarch-level divine artifact. If the bloody sword continued to protect the sacred mountain, even if the 18 divine ships used all their strength, they might not be able to break through the defense of the bloody sword. The battlefield suddenly calmed down. The members of the Blood Sword sect rejoiced, but the atmosphere of the Blood Blade sect was very solemn. At this moment, the 1,000-zhang-tall blood-red sword suddenly flashed with a purple light. Whoosh! A black-robed figure more than 3 zhang tall stepped out of the bloody sword. He stood in the sky, exuding a powerful divine might and domineering aura. He stood in the sky and appeared before everyone. The gazes of countless people fell on him in unison. It was a handsome God clan member dressed in black robes. His face was handsome and demonic, and his skin was as white as jade, devoid of blood. He had a pair of elf-like pointy ears and a dark red mark of a bloody sword on his forehead. His purple eyes were emotionless as he indifferently scanned the crowd. In the end, his gaze fell on Ji Tianqing, Shui Huan, Blood Dragon, and left emissary Jin. Bastards of the Blood Blade sect, you really came. However, that demoness Lin Shui didn't come. How dare trash like you charge into the dragon blood forbidden ground? The black-robed god race member said indifferently. His voice wasn't loud, but it clearly spread throughout the area and entered everyone's mind. There was no anger in his tone, but it contained frightening confidence and domineering power. Shui Huan, Blood Dragon, and left emissary Jin all had solemn expressions as they hurriedly sent messages to Ji Tianqing. It's the sect master of the Blood Sword sect. He's Lin Shan. It looks like his strength has improved again. He's not far from the 8th level of the Divine Lord Realm. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2983. Actually, there was no need for left emissary Jin and the other two to remind him. Ji Tianqing could also guess that the black-robed Divine Lord was the master of the Blood Sword sect, Lin Shan. After all, this person had walked out of the Blood Sword and had the powerful aura of a high Divine Lord. The disciples and guards of the Blood Sword sect all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the master of the Blood Sword sect. As for the 10-odd Divine Lords and hundreds of experts of the Blood Blade sect, they all felt a great pressure. Everyone gripped their weapons tightly as they stared at the master of the Blood Sword sect solemnly. Divine Lord Blood Illusion stepped forward and said in a deep voice, Lin Shan. After 300 years, we meet again. Even though your strength has improved, it's useless. You're the only one left in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. No matter how strong you are, you can't defeat so many Divine Lords and experts. Even if the Master doesn't come, we can easily kill you. Stop resisting stubbornly, just admit defeat and surrender. With Divine Lord Blood Illusion's reminder, the people of the Blood Blade sect felt much more at ease and regained their confidence. They were just intimidated by the name of the master of the Blood Sword sect and instinctively felt uneasy and fearful. But it was different now. The Blood Blade sect had the advantage in numbers while the master of the Blood Sword sect was alone. No matter how strong he was, he could not withstand the attacks of so many experts. He would definitely die, so what was there to be afraid of? The master of the Blood Sword sect stared at Divine Lord Blood Illusion as a disdainful sneer appeared on his lips. Blood Illusion, have you forgotten the pain of that sword strike 1,000 years ago? Every time we meet, I have to remind you that it was that sword strike that caused you to lose your divine body forever. You will never be able to recover. Divine Lord Blood Illusion's most painful and infuriating memories were evoked. He roared in a deep voice, Lin Shan. You despicable and shameless bastard. You won't be happy for long. Soon, you will die under my sword. At that time, I'll definitely burn your bones and scatter your ashes, and make you suffer all kinds of pain and torment. Ha ha ha. The master of the Blood Sword sect raised his head and laughed. He said in a disdainful tone, I said that only that which Lin Shui is qualified to fight with me. No matter how many of you there are, you're still a bunch of trash. You're only fit to be nourishment for my sword. As he spoke, he manipulated the blood-red greatsword and released an overwhelming slaughter sword intent. Buzz. A layer of blood-red killing intent visible to the naked eye spread out like ripples, covering a radius of several hundred miles. Many of the Sir Gods and experts of the Blood Blade sect were swept by the blood-red killing intent. Immediately, their bodies shook violently as they revealed intense fear. That terrifying killing intent caused the illusion of hell to appear in everyone's minds. It was as if they had fallen into an ice cellar, and their bodies were cold. For a moment, the fighting spirit of the Blood Blade sect's members was extinguished, and their fear of the sect master of the Blood Sword sect grew. The Blood Sword sect master became even more pleased with himself when he saw this. He sneered in disdain, ha ha ha. An ant will always be an ant. Everyone was speechless. Only Ji Tianqing remained calm and indifferent from the beginning to the end. Even the terrifying killing intent released by the Blood Sword did not affect him at all. Seeing that the Blood Sword sect master's aura had suppressed everyone else, he took a step forward and said with an indifferent expression, Lin Shan, your performance ends here. The more you bluff, the more it proves that you have a guilty conscience. The moment he said this, countless gazes gathered on him. The Blood Sword sect master also frowned as he stared coldly at Ji Tianqing. Brat, you are Tianqing. Although he had never seen Ji Tianqing before, he was Ji Tianqing's archenemy. However, Ji Tianqing was a mortal enemy of the Blood Sword sect. He had seen Ji Tianqing's portrait long ago, so he could recognize him. You're just a coward who doesn't even dare to go to the desolate mountain range. What right do you have to slander me? The Blood Sword sect master sneered, his face filled with disdain. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, I didn't go to the desolate mountain range because I already knew everything and predicted that you would stay behind in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. Thus, I directly charged into the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land and took your head. As for those small fries in the desolate mountain range, I'll catch them all in one fell swoop after killing you. The Blood Sword sect master was stunned for a moment before he burst into wild laughter. Ha ha ha, no matter how you quibble, you can't hide the fact that you're a coward. Ji Tianqing shook his head and said with pity, Lin Shan, you're the Blood Sword sect master. How could you fall to the point of pretending to be crazy? I saw through your tricks and am already in front of you, about to take your dog life. Yet you're still stubborn and say that I'm a coward. What kind of logic is that? The Blood Sword sect master was speechless and could only frown and stare at him with a malicious gaze. Ji Tianqing continued, in front of me, don't use your little tricks to embarrass yourself. In fact, you don't have any confidence at all. The only reason you're spouting nonsense is to stall for time. You're waiting for your subordinates to return to the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land to help you. However, they're all blocking me in the desolate mountain range and won't be able to return in a few days. Moreover, they can't build a teleportation array in the desolate mountain range. Firstly, the price is too great. Secondly, it would take too much time. If I'm not wrong, they must have a divine artifact. A divine artifact that contains the laws of space and can travel through space. The people from the Blood Blade sect nodded when they heard Ji Tianqing's words. They felt like they had come to a sudden realization. However, the Blood Sword sect master's expression changed subtly. A hint of shock flashed through his eyes, and he found it hard to believe. Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then continued, the spatial divine artifact that your subordinates can control is at most high monarch grade. If you can fit all the divine lords and experts and bring more than 4,000 people through space, you'll need to spend a lot of resources and time. Let me guess, the distance between the desolate mountain range and the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land is more than 10 million kilometers. That divine artifact might need to travel 3 times and spend several billion divine stones to return to the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. Even if they receive your orders and rush back as quickly as possible, they'll still need 2 hours. What you need to do is to put on a show and stall for 2 hours. Once all your lackeys return, you'll have a chance to turn the tables. This monarch guessed correctly, right? After saying this, Ji Tianqing smirked at the Blood Sword sect master and said, unfortunately, you won't be able to wait for them to come back. In 2 hours you'll be dead, and the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land will be reduced to ruins. The disciples and guards of the Blood Sword sect were all dumbfounded and looked at each other. As for the divine lords and disciples of the Blood Sword sect, they all breathed a sigh of relief as if a great burden had been lifted from their shoulders. There was a burst of discussion in the crowd. No wonder the people of the Blood Sword sect all ran to the desolate mountain range, leaving only the Blood Sword sect master to guard the sect. No wonder the Blood Sword sect dared to do this. They have a spatial divine artifact that allows them to quickly come back. How did young Master Tianqing know a secret that even our sect doesn't know? If this is all young Master Tianqing's speculation, doesn't that mean he can predict the future? Just how terrifying is his intelligence and strategy? No wonder young Master Tianqing insisted on attacking the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land. He saw through everything long ago. The divine lords and disciples of the Blood Sword sect felt even more reverence and admiration for Ji Tianqing. They suddenly felt that with young Master Tianqing's help, the Blood Sword sect was nothing to fear. Ever since the start of the war, the Blood Sword sect had never been defeated. This was the best proof. Moreover, their fear of the Blood Sword sect master lessened, and the shadow in their hearts dissipated. The fighting spirit that had previously dissipated was ignited once more. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.